good percentage to have. Hello,
Hey, there's
everybody.
an ad on it.
Oh, there's always an ad on Twitch. Twitch does that for everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Drock Show. We are continuing the saga of Mom Piece. Hello, all of the people who are showing up for this conversation. I'm thrilled to jump right into it and get started. What should I call you on stream? Should I just say mom, mother? We haven't talked about that. I just realized because I was about to refer to you and
I had this thing about what to call you because I used your name and then I was like, oh.
Yeah, people who know me in real life have tended towards using my name. The internet handle is Drock. That's what I tend to go by on stream. I know Drock Mom is what people have been calling you.
That's fine. Drock Mom and Mama Drock.
Mama Drock. Yeah, that's the big one I've seen a lot of, right? Okay, there we go. I'm getting my reference ups because I just want to be real sure that I have this the exact way I want to. Let's get right into it. I think immediately starting this up again, you have stumbled onto something that I think the average viewer of One Piece doesn't kind of become aware of for hundreds of chapters. So when you... Oh my god, the webcam froze. Never mind. We're going to take a brief pause. Why is it being such a dick today? It normally isn't like this. Normally I fix it once and then it's good. All right, we're going to start in a second. I have to fix the webcam again. The thing I'm used to with the webcam is it fucks up once, I fix it, and then it's good to go. And today it's just decided, I'm gonna fuck up 4 times, actually, please, and thank you. And y'all, we are having extensive tech issues. Now my webcam monitor is fucking up. Love to see everything, all the tech issues. I've never had every single thing that can go wrong before. It's honestly a little bit funny. There we go. The pen's working, the webcam's working, the button to make me give my dog a treat is working, so where did I put his treats? Oh no. Come here, buddy. Come here. Mwah. All right. Mama Drock, you still there?
And your are a little bit off for me.
What's a little off?
Like the webcam and your voice were a little bit off.
That's at this point there's not much I can do. I use an XP pen tablet to draw. That was Bellamy, by the way. You can redeem points to make me give Bellamy a treat. Okay, let's get started for real now that I think the tech issues are out of the way.
Awesome. Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome back to the One Piece read-along, chapters 69 to 100. We're doing Arlong Park, we're doing Logtown, and we are heading on the way to Reverse Mountain. The boy get pets. I immediately want to start off by framing this. You are now reading the series differently because you stumbled onto something that I think, in my experience, I've never seen someone kind of catch on to before episode or chapter like 250, 300, somewhere in the 200 range at least, is usually when people first start to be able to notice this. Do you want to talk about the revelation you had about how you were reading the series? That it blows me away. I think it shows that you were reading this like no one I've seen.
Okay, well, I didn't know why it blew you away, so I felt like I was just telling you a thing that I noticed, and then you were like, wait, what? Don't talk about that anymore. But I think I was in chapter 70 or 71, and let me just go to my thing. Yeah, here it is. And then Captain Nezumi was talking, and at the time they were calling him Umi, and then one of the people was like, your name really suits you. And I started to think about like, well, Wyatt, what does his name mean? So I started to go on this deep dive of Japanese names. And then while I was doing it and realizing that there was this whole other layer, I started to notice some other things. And I was like, oh, so it's an adventure and I'm reading an adventure, but I'm also reading a mystery. And I realized the whole thing is set up so that One Piece isn't just something that we're going to stumble onto. One Piece is like, it's like we're all Sherlock Holmes and we're all sitting here and picking up these clues and all these secret pieces, also figuring out the One Piece.
Exactly. Like, and that revelation that you should be reading the series like a mystery, I think everybody eventually gets there. I think everybody starts to realize that it's a series full of all these little clues and secrets that you can catch and pick up on. But I have never seen someone before chapter 100 even start to realize that they can read this series like a mystery, and that there's all of these things you can pick up on and details you can figure out. That to me is it. Hey anybody, if you just stumbled in on this on YouTube, I think this is going to be one of the most interesting read-throughs of the series that's been done, because that observation goes so far beyond what I've seen someone catch on to this early, and it's awesome.
Yeah, but it was interesting too, because then I started to wonder about all the things that I'm not seeing because I'm not fluent in Japanese. So, I mean, not fluent in Japanese, meaning that I'm a like 10-month-old in Japanese. And so as I was looking at it, I started to look up, what do all these names mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? And it took me on when I talked to you, I was like, yeah, I can't talk. I'm rereading this chapter because I have to go and look at what all these names mean to see how it changes how I read this. And then you were like, yeah, maybe you should just read for enjoyment first and then talk and about then doing all that. And I was like, wrong. This is enjoyment.
Like, yeah, you're having fun pulling at every loose thread you come across. Like, I don't know if anyone knows this, but she found an observation that I've never seen someone catch on before. Obviously, Japanese readers, this has to be obvious because you know Japanese, but Gyoza is the name, right, of the village that Arlong destroyed before the Straw Hat Pirates arrived. And it's Japanese for like a blunder or a mistake, right? You said
it's Japanese for miscalculation or mistake, a blunder. So it was saying that the reason that this place fell apart. So if you were a Japanese speaking reader, you were sitting there and thinking like, oh, they named it that. And then, he destroyed it when they tried to stand up for themselves. And then I think that it isn't just that they tried to stand up for themselves. It's the way in which they did it. It's timing. Because I've started to notice in One Piece, timing matters. Like the only one who doesn't seem to understand timing at first, you think is Luffy, but then you realize that even Luffy understands timing.
That people who are caught up in the manga just heard you said that and were like, wait, what the fuck? I don't think I've heard someone talk about the importance of timing being thematic in the series before. I literally don't think so. Until very recently, where it's become thematically unavoidable. That's not a spoiler. But I think you just caught onto something that I, until very recently, had never thought of in the series. And that's you're right.
Well, they give clues, right? So like when you're reading, if you're in chapter, let me think, here it is it 70? No, it might be 71. So they give clues where, what's Nami's mom's name?
Bellamere,
that's right. And so when she keeps telling them that the most important thing that they can do is survive for now. And then that theme is brought up the entire way through. You must survive for now. And you have to be strong, and this isn't the time. Even when Nami's sister freaks out at that little kid and smacks him, which was, an interesting choice.
Punch the kid, why not?
Sometimes you have to punch a kid, I guess. That was, and it didn't seem to be a problem. But even in that one, she says to him, back here, that this isn't the time, that you have to wait. that you need to be able to stand up and survive for now. So then I started to look at that and realize that throughout it, that he's using time cues as a way of telling people how important timing is.
Oh my god. So I'm noticing all these little things now that I hadn't, and there's not that many I can talk about that are within where you are, but I think there's one I can, which is Luffy setting sail on his journey. Like, you have this incredibly ambitious kid who's told by Shanks, no, this isn't the time for you, you have to wait, but do find me when you're ready. And like, I think it's so interesting to have waiting for an opportunity be such a core part of a series about drive and ambition and your will to do things. Then on top of that, just being ready and waiting for the opportunity where you can succeed is important. And like, the moment for me that does that is like when Luffy is clobbering early East Blue villains, like leagues above them in terms of strength and toughness and power. There's a moment where Kuro's like, I'm the best, look at the shit I can do. And Luffy just is like, no, fuck you. Throws a giant rock down in front of him, catches his claws, and is like, you've been hiding, you've been waiting to be cowardly instead of chasing your dreams. You know what I've been doing while waiting? Training my body to be king of the pirates. And like, there's so many little moments once you catch that note that you can unravel and realize a lot of the series is about the balance of waiting to be prepared, waiting for the moment to strike, and also chasing your ambitions.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a whole bunch of things that I was noticing as we went through, and you wanted to talk about like the overview pieces. And so those are the two things I was noticing. I was noticing that he builds a lot of his piece around timing, and it's meticulous timing because it's everything from not going and helping Nami out until she asks for it, because anytime before that wouldn't allow her to feel like she had agency in that decision. And so it's the timing of waiting for a friend to ask. It's the timing of staying strong, training, being true to yourself, keeping your dream and your focus ahead of time while you collect all these berries so you can buy your town back. It's the timing of not seeking revenge before you're ready to do so. So everything in it, I started to notice, has this quality around timing. And then I started to notice that it was also part of the mystery. Unraveling the mystery is going to be fun.
Oh man, I am so thrilled to see all of the ways we go through that you can notice that theme, because there's a lot of I like to think I'm good at literary analysis, and like I learned from you, of course I'm good at it. It's genuinely something that I take pride in, and I'll often find myself watching a One Piece YouTuber talk about the themes of the series, and I'm like, there's so many thematic elements that you're missing here. How are you not noticing this? You're talking about the themes around freedom and agency, but you're not talking about the themes around death that are so important in the series. And here you are, serving me the way that I feel like I'm serving all these theorists I watch, where you're like, hey, did you notice that timing and waiting are incredibly important themes in the series? And I go, holy fuck, no, literally never have I noticed that.
Well, I think the interesting thing is when you and I have talks, I always feel like you say something and I'm like, oh, hell yeah, and that sparks this and that sparks this. It's just, I think having a conversation, and it's why I tell people all the time, like, you being in a literary talk with people is what's going to help you dig down and get more enjoyment out of it. It's that deep conversation and the love for a thing together that's really going to give you something like worthy.
Oh man,
do you want to go through cool. Do you want to go through the chapters the way that we did before?
I think arc by arc, now that we've done the big overviews. Actually, before we go arc by arc, very important, 2 notes. There's a lot of stuff. I'm not going to respond to all the comments, but I want to quickly say a lot of people pointed out, no, actually the anime had Luffy stabbing his eye. It was just the English dub that didn't. You are tricking yourself because you've seen animation of Luffy stabbing his eye. The episode of Luffy special, he stabs his eye. The original series, no eye stabbing. And second of all, falling down the stairs doesn't mean the thing you think it does. It was a theory started on the Reddit, and people kind of telephone gamed it into saying it was a real thing. It's not. It absolutely meaningless. You can find hundreds and hundreds of things of Japanese speakers saying, no, that's not a thing here. She fell down the stairs. That's it. That's all. Now, let's get into the series bit by bit. We just finished the Baratier. Zoro is injured. Nami stole the boat. And everyone needs to find a way to where she's gone. Arlong Park, the site of the most dangerous pirate in the East Blue, who Johnny and Yusuke are terrified of.
Yeah. Okay. So in this chapter, first of all, it starts off and we have my least favorite straw hat pulling a sleigh with reindeer in it. Well, Luffy is eating a piece of chicken. And I'm sitting there and wondering why it is that they all feel and look like they're sick while they're out for a ride. And I'm like, does this have something to do with it? The problem is once you realize that there's this mystery within a adventure, you start to worry about. Pardon me?
Very few of the little art requests at the beginning tie into anything.
Imagined. Yeah. But then when I looked at the date this was made, because I was like, oh, Christmas time. So then I looked up the date and I was just absolutely laughing, thinking about how old you were at the time in comparison to what this is like. And then when it starts, he does that thing that he does in some chapters, not all of them, where the art is different and he has more of a ton of variation in shadowing. Mm-hmm. The line work is different. The perspective is different. So it's the same comic, but it's almost like it's written by a different hand or somebody who has more time to take on it. Mm-hmm. And then he goes back into his regular art. And he only does it in some chapters, which made me think that I want to go back to the beginning and figure out what chapters he does it in and read all of those together like it's a separate book.
I'd be curious about that. I feel like you're a bit Da Vinci coding it on that one, but if you find something I haven't noticed, that'll be pretty incredible. My take on it, I think it's early.
You and I both know I'll Da Vinci code it if I can.
early on, I think he played with his art style a lot more just to try to figure out what he wanted to draw.
Even in chapter 100, he has only one panel that he does in this style.
You gotta remember, up to like 300, we consider early One Piece.
I know, you keep saying that to me, and I keep being mind blown by that. Okay, so we have the blubbering little baby on the boat being so bowled over by how absolutely moving and touching the last chapters were. And then we have a whole separate boat.
So Usopp's the baby, you're saying?
No, Usopp's not crying. It was, who is he?
Johnny Yusuke?
How long are you going to keep blubbering? Yeah. And he's like, it was all so moving.
Oh.
Right. And then we have the other boat. So the question I was going to ask is, in the beginning of this one, we find out about the 7 warlords of the sea. Yep. And we find out that my main man, Hawkeye, is one of these warlords. And I was like, oh, yeah. We're going to see us some Hawkeye for a long time.
Working for the world government.
I was so excited by this idea. And then I was like, 7 warlords of the sea. Are there 7 seas? Is this the sail the 7 seas? And each one gets
a fun number.
All right, then. What did I love about this chapter? This chapter was kind of,
it's just moving things along. I think we can do section by section because I think chapter by chapter there's going to be a lot that kind of just move the plot.
Yeah, this chapter to me was kind of a let's just move the plot through and told us some little background on what Nami saw and stuff. My main point for this chapter was right at the end, getting to meet at Arlong Park, Captain Arlong of the Pirates. What a phenomenal villain.
He is without question the best villain in the East Blue. Like, he's so terrifying, but like something that I love about Oda that I think you see in Arlong is he's really good at finding a way to have like, what are the positive aspects of this villain? Like, why does he actually have people who care about him and want to fight and die for him? He cares about his crew. He's cunning. He's ruthless. He'll stick to his word technically. He is such mob boss energy to me,
Yeah, 100%. But it was this chapter that started to make me look at it. So this is when it was. When we're talking to Arlong, and he has the person come up to him who's going to get to have cut of his action in order to ignore who he is. It was this area where they started to say, you got an interesting face, Mouse Umi. Your name sure fits you. So then I looked up Umi, and I was like super confused because Umi doesn't mean mouse in Japanese. It meant ocean. And then I looked up his full name when they talked about it later, and it means his full name, Nazumi, means mouse, but it is with his nickname, they're calling him Ocean Mouse, which is super cool. So this is when I started to notice that there was all these things hidden in plain sight that I'm missing out on because Japanese culture isn't at my fingertips. And I was like, oh,
you don't speak fluent Japanese where you could actually notice all of this without needing it pointed out.
Yeah. And so much of it is an intrinsic that if you're a Japanese person, you're just pulling out all of this deeper meaning all on your own, and you don't have to treat it like it's this mystery within a mystery. So, but then I loved it. And the only reason I knew that right away is because I know that Hachi is 8. So I was like, okay, what else is going on? And plus Oda says in between one of his panels how important names are. He actually talks about names and the importance of them. So I started to look at them.
It feels like there's a few characters who are named just so flatly, like this is Japanese for this or whatever language for this, but then there's some characters where you're right. If you pull at the thread, you can find a lot of thematic weight. And I think the fact that you're going to be rewarded for panning for gold like this every once in a while, this is going to be an addiction. I don't think you're going to be able to stop like looking into every character's name to try to have the ones discovered where it does mean something.
Yeah, well, that's an accurate prediction.
Because sometimes you're right. Oftentimes it's just as flat as like Hachi means 8 and he has 8 arms.
Yeah, you're like Hachi means 8 and he's an octopus. Ooh.
Yeah. It's so meaningful.
Yeah, but there's small delightful richness. Like if you get to find out that when you take a nickname and then you take his full name, it means Ocean Mouse. It might not seem like a big thing until you realize how layered it is. And I said to you in the short conversation that we had that it feels like kimono, the idea of layering colors and fabrics and print to try to create a story within a story. And if you are careful, you can parse through it and find something really cool, really unique that the author knew was there and left for you like an Easter egg. And I think it's worth doing. Like it's so fun when you catch these little pieces, and it adds richness and it makes the overall story feel deeper.
I do think you're right. There's actually a YouTuber who I follow named Library of Ohara Arter. And I love it because he's the one I told you about who taught himself learned Japanese to read One Piece more thoroughly. And now whenever new chapters come out, I can watch his content or read it when he does it as a blog post instead and find out all these little name meanings and stuff. So I really, really do understand the appeal of like being able to dissect all the little hidden meanings you can find.
Yeah, but I think because we read such a big chunk at a time that I left out one of the most important pieces here.
All right.
Because now it just becomes a matter of course. And that's when I was sitting there and reading and Nami walks out and I'm like, what? No! And Nami's a crew member and you're like, how could she? This conniving witch.
But why? But she talks about hating pirates all the time. How could this be?
Yeah, I was just like, oh, what a throw. And I felt like I had missed all these obvious signs. But then I was like just eating up this new villain. I just thought it was phenomenal. And also hated her immensely at the time. But it's so fast how quick they give you clues that there's a reason that Nami is in this situation and what she's looking for and what she's hoping to do, so that you don't hate her for a long time. Although even I wasn't a big fan, even though she was stabbing somebody that I don't necessarily love, even though it breaks other people's hearts.
You hate Usopp, so why didn't you love her stabbing the shit out of him in cold blood?
Because it just feels beyond wrong. Like, first of all, Usopp just feels like this person that has to be cared for all the time, and then she stabs him, and I'm like, and let's not forget that we call one the great adventures of Usopp the man, and then his first act as a man in chapter 70 is to jump ship and leave Zoro to die.
It's a bit of an ironic name for a chapter. I think that's got to be done on purpose.
And it was interesting, this chapter too, because in the beginning panel, I thought that Zoro wasn't tied up when we first saw him, and then suddenly he was tied to a mast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was a very interesting thing, because at the end of the last panel, he didn't seem to be tied up, and then in this one, he was tied up.
I think
at
they
the
quickly went over it being some sort of weird plan.
That's what I was thinking, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah,
I was looking again.
I skim reread in the lead up to these, but I don't remember the details there.
Yeah, it was something like that. So then they leave him. They're very sad. Forgive us, Zoro. I'll tell Luffy you died bravely. Will you? Wow. Kind.
He's so nice.
That's a big moment.
It's so kind of Usopp to make sure Zoro's remembered well.
I bet he would be really, really touched. But let's just cut to the chase, because trying to do it chapter by chapter is kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, I think it's got to be like section by section for sure. I think chapter by chapter we're gonna get lost in the weeds and jump around.
So I have to say, Usopp has had his redeeming moment with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, watching the moment when he realized who he was and who he wanted to be didn't match, and having him rub the dirt into his skin, and there was this phenomenal moment where you, with the words that he used, with the way that the drawing was done, this look on his face where he just suddenly realized, while going through all this effort, that who he wanted to be and wanted to see himself as didn't match his actions.
I think that's a really great way of looking at it. It's a kind of an actualizing moment where Usopp actually is self-aware and takes in what he's doing. Instead of thinking about the line, thinking about how he's perceived, he thinks about how he'll think of himself. And I think that's it's a really pretty moment.
A completely different moment than just worrying about what everyone else is going to think about you.
I will say, in the spirit of going section by section, do you mind if we hop to everything before the walk-up, and then we'll do everything after the walk-up afterwards?
That feels good. What chapter was the walk-up? Do you remember?
81 is the walk-up, so everything before the classic. And just so people know, when I think the anime does something particularly well, I'm making sure that Mama Drak takes a look at that. So the Arlong Park walk-up, of course, I sent the video. I was like, as soon as you're done reading chapter 81, watch this, because how can you not love it? But let's talk about everything up to that point first, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, that sounds good. And then, so chapters... I'm gonna read it backwards.
So this is basically just the lead up of discovering what's going on, learning about Arlong, Zoro confronting the men, the fishmen, the Navy who are showing up to stop Arlong being sunk because they're using Nami's charts, discovering Nami's backstory, and the villagers deciding to confront Arlong. Like, that's all. I think that's most of what happened in that section. And beating up Momu.
Oh, yes. I didn't like that. I love that weird giant cow.
Look, it wasn't Momu's choice to fight, but he was going to sink their boat if they didn't.
It's not like I don't know that, but did you see how cute he was?
Momu is very cute.
Thank you for noticing.
Look, I'm a big Momu fan.
I like the way that we did the villains in here, the fishmen. I think that, but the moment that they had Arlong stand up for the first time near another person, I was like, mic drop.
Oh, fuck, you tall.
Because I like how up until that moment, the perspective that the comic was drawn in was done in a way where you understood that this was a large person. He had traits that other people didn't have. He was able to withstand things in the way other people weren't. And then he's standing and they put him in proper perspective with other people. And you're like, oh, that's a whole other level. And that was genius.
He's so goddamn big. Like, people in One Piece can be a lot of different sizes. but I think this is probably the first moment where like Oda makes the villain just feel goddamn huge, and it's so perfect because he's definitely meant to be the big bad of the East Blue. Like, we're fighting the real villain of this sea in this arc.
And yet he's also just was the right hand of one of the 7 warlords.
Yep, used to sail with the fishman warlord Jimbei back in the
Which
day.
really gives you a great idea of how strong the actual 7 warlords are.
Yeah, that this guy was just like a high-ranking crewmate, not like, it doesn't even say like second in command. It's just like, yeah, important crewmate of a warlord.
Yeah, and so you're like, oh, the warlords, and then thinking about Zoro fighting Mihawk makes you realize like just how outmatched he was, and what a phenomenal moment that was to have so early on. And that's something that Oda continues to do that I think was really cool, is that he doesn't just hold off on those big moments. He gives you glimpses into big future moments and brings them to where you are now. And I think that's one of the things that makes this story so compelling.
The world is
not
so
just
inviting.
Like, yeah, he's not like, just wait. He's like, you want a little show? Woo, look at that.
Yeah,
you're like,
he's constantly showing you the level of action and the scale of the world that the Straw Hats will one day reach. It's really cool. I think there's this thing people talk about in open world games, which is a weird analogy, but bear with me, where I think people like about an open world game is you can look at the horizon and know one day we're going to get there. And One Piece, despite being a linear story, gives you that same feeling just by actually showing you glimpses of the size of the world. And you're right, it's through lots of little ways. It's through seeing Mihawk beat up Zoro, but it is also really important to say just the crewmate of a warlord can be a dominating force in the East Blue. That's how much
yeah,
this
they
is
didn't
a small
fight him
pond.
once. They fought him multiple times to get to the point that they could defeat him. And it wasn't just that they defeated him easily. Like it took everybody and all the cooperation and everyone using their greatest strength. So for that to be the necessity in order to win in Arlong Park, you know that they have a long way to go yet. But I like that idea because I like the idea that they're not stagnant and that they're going to improve and learn more about themselves and gain strengths, and that there's an idea of mastery. And it's something that we talk about in education when we look around the world. One of the things that Japan is well known for is when kids come against a problem, they look at it different. Like in the United States, especially in parts of Canada, they say when a kid comes across a problem, it'll overwhelm them and you'll guide them through, and you can't give them something that's too advanced for where they're at, or it makes them feel like they're stupid. But if you give a Japanese child something that's far too advanced for where they are super comfortable with failing and failing and failing over and over again, because they see that as learning and getting better and finding out what doesn't work. And that really feels like it shows up in this story, that they come into a fight and they battle and everything that they did doesn't work. But Luffy especially embodies it and still has a smile on his face and is like, that didn't work. Let's get up, everyone. And then everybody comes at it again and sees each battle, each moment, each thing they do as building skill and getting better so that you can be successful. And that's just a really cool undertone that goes the whole way through, because we know how much better they're all going to get if we know that Arlong, who is just a member of one of the 7 warlords, is this strong. We know how much better they're going to have to get for Luffy to ever be king of the pirates, which now, like, he has to. I'm way too involved.
So a couple things I want to touch on here. First thing I want to say, I've been skipping over it because we've been having a tight convo, but so many people in chat have been loving your takes already, and a lot of people were really excited and have been saying hi. So I just wanted to let you know that, and thanks everybody for saying hello and for being here. It's so awesome to see the chat so full and active. This is amazing. And
hello everyone. It's really cool to have people here when we're talking about this and adding interesting ideas. And yeah.
That being said, someone else brought up something that for the prediction corner at the end, someone wants your predictions for what the warlords will be like. So you've got to come up with, we know 1, and we know 1 is a fish man, so we're going to have predictions for 5 warlords at the end. And how do you feel about that?
Wow. I mean, yeah, I'm already going to predict 1 just ahead of time. I haven't thought much about the other warlords, which is interesting. I think it's because I went down such a this time around reading, I call my mystery time, where I started to unpack all of the different names and all the places and everything. And so I think that I kind of ignored the, hey, who could the possible warlords be, except for one, because you're drawing a moment when I think I actually gasped.
No, this is we'll talk about this in the post Arlong Park, the corner of people reacting to Luffy's bounty poster.
100%. But other than that one where I was like, oh, please let him be a warlord. Other than that, I didn't think about who the warlords were going to be very much.
I obviously cannot confirm or deny any predictions.
No, you cannot confirm or deny any predictions.
I'm going to try to be real good about not spoiling things with how seriously you're taking information now. I feel like I have to be way more careful than last time.
Oh, I listen to everything you say. And then I say to myself, how's that going to come into play?
Oh, God. I got to be so careful.
Like, when you were, you reminded me, and you told me this years ago when you were trying to convince me.
How have you remembered something from that far back? Okay.
I don't know. How do you? Years and years ago, you had told me something, and then recently you kind of mentioned it again, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. He was talking about that before. And it called up that idea of One Piece being based on kabuki. And kabuki is a word that comes from kabuku, meaning out of the ordinary.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And so I was thinking about how if you base something around something that's supposed to be out of the ordinary, then everything that happens inside of it is ordinary. Because everything is supposed to be out of the ordinary. So it gives you a lot more license to play with, that lets you do things that you normally couldn't do, because you've already told the people from the type of format you're using, and you're using the Kabuki 5-chapter theory, that it's going to be different and strange and odd, and that just is what it is, because that's part of the format. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be Kabuki.
I didn't know that that's the etymology of that word, but no, it kind of makes sense that's One Piece introduces itself as absurdist art immediately to a Japanese reader just by drawing on traditions of kabuki. Now, obviously, not every Japanese middle schooler is aware of the history of kabuki, because not every English middle schooler is aware of the structure of a Shakespearean tragedy. But I think enough readers would be that it would definitely draw on a cultural expectation of absurdist art.
Yeah, 100%. So then I started to look at all these awesome things and thinking, you can almost see the dance in here, because kabuki is highly moved or highly formed around movement and dance. And so I started to think of the fight scenes as being dance scenes, and how they were choreographed, so that I was like, well, this is confusing. And then I started to say, well, that's confusing choreography, and then go back in and kind of watch it differently and be like, okay, yeah, I could see if this was played out now, how that's going to work. And it's sorry, go ahead.
I will say again, I think Oda gets a little bit better at drawing action in general within a few arcs. It's not his strongest suit ever. There are mangaka who do a better job. No one beats him at world building. But I think it's good that you're having an easier time kind of getting the choreography.
Yeah, well, if I started to see it as a dance, I started to be able to look at it. It made more sense to me. I could watch it as a scene of moving back and forth, and it became something that I could actually follow a little better. So what's the name of Nami's sister again?
Oh boy, this is the first name. Nejire? No, Nejire's not. Why can't I remember her name? It's so close. Bellamy, get pets, my boy. Someone asked.
Yeah, you're definitely right. It's so close.
Nojiko. Nojiko. Chat's got us. Chat saved us. Yeah, Nejire's a My Hero character.
You're up, Chat. Thanks very much. Yeah. Okay. Well, she's not your. I love her. She's one of my favorite characters.
She's so just cool and tough.
I mean, she did punch a kid, which was
look. That kid deserves to be punched.
It was a choice she made. But I loved her. I love this idea that the way that she protects Nami for so many years is just allowing Nami to be the same person she's always been with her, despite everyone believing that she was a traitor who had gone back on the name of her mom and who had left the village and worked with Arlong, that right from the very, very beginning. And then because I'm not going to ignore it, we find out later that the villagers had gotten wise and that Najiko had gone and told them what was taking place. But I just love this idea that she allowed and helped to work to keep Nami in the dark as a way of letting her do what she needed to do in order to find happiness and meet her goal. Her treasure, it wasn't literal treasure the way that we were led to believe. It was giving safety to her entire town.
Yeah, it was her town. It was Bellamir's tangerines.
It was so the people.
Yeah.
The tangerines end up representing Bellamere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't look up what tangerines mean in Japanese culture, but immediately I did look up in chapter 77 because of that. What's Genzo, right?
Yeah.
Genzo?
Genzo.
Yeah. Yeah. So Genzo walks around with that stupid pinwheel on his hat.
Which you found out the reason for.
Yeah. Yeah. But it means more than that.
Okay. What's the symbolism of a pinwheel? Because I am curious.
It's the cycle of life and becoming a child again. But it also represents Buddhist teachings of reincarnation. And coming back as something else. So I thought it was really interesting that he decided to put it on her grave at the end.
Aww.
But then because you talked about how he doesn't just use symbolism from Japanese culture, I just looked up what pinwheels represent. And pinwheels represent a time when things were simpler and had more optimism. And so him using that piece for her.
Oh my God. As something, as a reminder of the time before Arlong.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. That, I want to be like, I think you're reading too far into it, but no, that's great.
No, because why would he choose a pinwheel of all the things he could have done?
Yeah.
He made an intentional choice to put a pinwheel on his hat, stick it front and center, and then have the pinwheel come off his hat and go onto her grave. That's a super
oh my God.
dedicated choice.
And he was the one who was trying to keep the village together for everyone, to keep everyone's hopes up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, no, that's very good. Someone in chat, by the way, first of all, Nerd Praxis subbed to Prime. This is my second sub ever. So grateful. Thank you so much. And second, Mix, I'd never know how to say the MX prefix. Mix Mothman says, tangerines can refer to wealth. Don't know if there's additional meanings, but I have heard that before, that the reason they're associated with Nami, because Nami does care about money. Tangerines are her treasure, and they're also symbolic of wealth. Yes.
But that's amazing, because the wealth then could be the wealth of their family. She owns a tangerine farm. She has 2 daughters that she chose, not that she had. And that she would always talk about them being her most precious thing. And so it's almost like it's the wealth of their family. And she said, we'll always have something to eat as long as we have our tangerines. So that is their form of wealth. That's unbelievable.
Nerd Praxis, I hate to say this right after you subbed, but I said earlier, that's actually a rumor that was started on the subreddit. It's not true. Japanese speakers, you can find lots of references to Japanese speakers debunking it. Unfortunately, Nerd Praxis, she just fell downstairs. But you're entirely right that, like, I love that the symbolism there of the, oh man, the tangerines representing the wealth of the family, because it's how she supported the family she chose. And it's something, and so
she started a tangerine farm.
Is also just fun.
Right, because she came back to the island. We know that she had gone off, she had lived elsewhere, she had had adventures, and then she came back to the island with her daughters that she acquired. And after they survived, and she sat there begging for their survival, then the thing that she started was a tangerine farm. And if that means wealth, I mean, we know that she herself isn't going to be wealthy with the life choices she's now made, but the wealth comes from the love and the family that she's nurturing.
she's kind of traded wealth for tangerines. Her
Exactly.
chance at wealth and fame and glory was traded in
Yeah,
for this thing that she uses to support her chosen family.
exactly.
Oh, that's really sweet. Okay. Again, I want to keep being like, maybe we're reading too far into this, but that's so beautiful that I really don't think so. I think that is symbolically relevant. Even if it's not, it's an emergent theme. It's emergent symbolism, regardless of authorial intent, which is something I really
100%.
support.
And it's also a thing, like, when I'm looking at it, he makes so many choices that are obvious. I know that he's making a bunch of choices that are hidden as well. And he
Mhm.
talks in his SBS every once in a while. While he's being goofy, he'll then put something in that makes it clear that everything that he's doing is with intention, where he'll say, like,
Mhm.
well, you know what his name means, so you know why he did that. And then you look it up and you're like, damn, nice. And so it feels like he put some stuff in there that's low hanging fruit, pardon the pun, and then he put some other stuff in there that he says, you got to look for this, and if you're willing to, there's going to be a little present. And then, if some things aren't supposed to be that way, well, too bad, he made them that way by creating it, and so they
Yeah.
are now.
Again, I'm an absolute supporter that emergent themes and emergent meaning is as important as an authorial intent in artwork. So if we find something there that wasn't meant to be, it's still part of the final product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, I think we got to get to Nami's backstory now, because we've talked a bit about it. Uh, what are your thoughts? Let's get into that.
Okay, well, I'm a massive Nami fan now. Like, I think that, well, and her sister and her mom. I'm devastated that her
Yeah.
mom is dead. Her mom sacrificing herself was unbelievable. You can completely understand, too, like when you think about where she has the fight, you're not our real mother, Belmare. You'd be
Mm-hmm.
better off without us. You could tell that even when she's having that fight, she loves her and she's saying, like, you'd be able to do all these things if it wasn't for us. And it
Yeah.
absolutely crushes her.
There's this
And then to have
deep
her
set
mom
of
die,
guilt. Yeah.
yeah, and then to have her mom die, she has all this leftover guilt
Mm-hmm.
that follows her. But I was so grateful to Oda, because he could have just made it so much more depressing, but he let Belmare say goodbye to them in a really important way, and
Right.
make sure
Yeah.
that the girls knew that that was their mother and that she couldn't turn her back on them even if it meant dying, which so
It's
reminded me of
oh,
Sanji and his stupid moral code as well, because you're like, just shut up.
just shut up. Don't talk about them. But the fact that she would rather die just to get to die being their mother than have
Yes.
to let them know that she would
Oh,
trade them in for life.
a punch to the gut. Just like,
Ah. Yeah,
yeah.
there is a moment coming up that I'm going to start crying because we're talking about it. Kind of luminous. Thank you so much for the sub. That's amazing. I'm so grateful. And also, I'm about to cry once we come out of this backstory. Well, I don't cry a lot when I'm watching or reading things. I really don't. I very very rarely cry at stuff, with exceptions of like exceptional art where there's certain things that are well made enough that they can easily get tears out of me. But One Piece doesn't just do that. I think too hard about certain scenes in One Piece and I cry. That's how much this series
Oh,
is just
yeah.
perfect at getting at your heartstrings.
I can absolutely see that. When they have Belmare coming out of the water off of the boat, wrapped up in an old coat with two girls huddled against her, and she
Mm-hmm.
just says, don't worry about me, just please save the children, and then cries and falls on her knees, save them. And then we go forward to the time that she's being told that she had been left for dead on a battlefield, but she was about to close her eyes and die in peace when she saw Najiko coming along carrying Nami, and that's the reason she stood back up. To have the memory within the memory, and beautiful way that he drew it, by the way, doing
Mm-hmm.
like a darker shadow and then a lighter shadow, so we knew the difference of the memory within the memory. To have the memory within the memory and see why it is that Nami would take her mother's lessons to heart and know this
Mm-hmm.
isn't the time. This isn't the time. Hold out, do what you need to do to get the results you want. And yet, even though that was what her mom would tell her, her mom did the exact opposite when she sacrificed herself so that her daughters would know I didn't give birth to you. So it almost felt like it was her version of birth, because birth and death are so closely related in
Oh my God,
stories.
yeah.
So it was her version of birth.
It was her version. It was her way to give her body to declare that these are her children.
For her children.
Oh my God, you're right. Like, because no, it is birth symbolism. I never thought about that, but it's the sacrifice of your body to declare yourself as the mother of these children.
Exactly, and that's what it felt like. And so I was like, this was her moment of giving birth, so that forever both Najiko and Nami would from now on feel like that was the real mother. She had sacrificed her body for their lives.
Oh my God. I've never thought about that part of the symbolism. It's beautiful. Something about the backstory that I really want to touch on that is so important to Oda's writing is, I think until now, we haven't really seen the good side of the world government. We've seen good and bad pirates.
Yeah.
And Bellemere is our first sight that the world government, the Navy, can be great people. They can be heroic. They can be the good guys they should be. And we are now, from that point forwards, you're in a series where we've seen good pirates and bad pirates, and we've seen good Marines and bad Marines. Like, what faction someone belongs to doesn't tell you who they are. It doesn't tell you the value of their character. And that's so important to give us, because I think without Bellemere being such an incredible person, having been a Marine, we don't go into the rest of the series with this notion that the government can also be the good guys, that you aren't inherently bad because you're on their side.
Yeah, that's so true. It feels like he's just really honest with the fact that there is going to be people in every type of person. There are going to be people that are bad, and there are going to be people who are good. So you can't look at a story simply and say, oh, they're government. Oh, well, they're good guys. Or, oh, that's a pirate. They're bad. I mean, Luffy right away is a pirate and wants to be a pirate. And that's his goal. And yet, we're supposed to believe pirates are bad. And then meanwhile, we have people like the Ocean Mouse, who's running around and taking bribes, and all these people who are coming ashore and killing and help to decimate people. So I love that he's saying right away, don't think that you can hide behind somebody's title. That doesn't mean anything. You have to look at the person.
It's so integral for a story to feel like it has a full world, that the immediate facts about you aren't enough, that you need to know something about someone's character to meaningfully know them. And Bellemere gives us that exactly, where we get to know there are heroes in the Marines. There are people who are a Marine because they want to do good, because they have a good heart and they want to fight for justice. Like, I didn't, until Bellemere happened, feel confident that, like, Kobe should be in the Marines. I was like, Bud, you think they're heroes, but look at Morgan and how evil he was. Look at Nezumi. But then you see, like, Bellemere, and it made me look back at Kobe and go, oh no, there is a place for good people as well. There's a place for good people anywhere, and while there might be a struggle, like, you can be a good person in any group.
Yeah. Just because we're about to turn the page and I was on this page, I just had to remember this moment. At the end, in lots of Japanese culture, they say often that people don't say I love you. It's their actions, not what they say. So it was interesting that the last words out of her mouth were I love you. Like, that was a very, because she had the actions, she sacrificed herself. But I remember watching this documentary about a phone booth at the end of an island on Japan that's not connected to anything, that people started to come to after the tsunami to talk to their loved ones and tell them things. And some people were asked if they could be recorded, and they would say things like, I'm building you that sunroom, so it'll be there for you now. Aww. And then the narrator would say, in Japan, a traditional way to tell people you love them is through actions, not words. And so it made me think that not only does she give those actions, her last words are, I love you.
But I think there's also a place in One Piece for things that go against Japanese culture. Like,
I agree.
Oda definitely doesn't come across as someone who's like, yeah, my culture is the right one, it's perfect, and that's all I'm going to show about the world. He's very good at showing lots of perspectives on lots of different things. Like, he shows you the virtue of someone who is entirely linked to ideals and despite the consequences of that kind of life. And when he does that with Sanji, it doesn't feel like an endorsement necessarily. It just feels like an understanding of what that person's view on the world might be, flaws and all. So I think it is un-Japanese of Bellemere to, on top of the action, need to say it to her daughters. They absolutely need to say, no, girls, I love you.
Absolutely. And she had told them never lose to anyone. That was one of the things that she had told them before. And she tells it in chapter 80. She talks, never lose to anyone. Stay strong. You have to be stronger as a girl. And I thought about how incredible that was, because it shows that when she chose to sacrifice herself, that wasn't a loss.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. Before we move on to post walk up, or the walk up and post walk up, I want to real quick touch on something very funny that you might not know. The first dub that happened in One Piece happened almost by accident, where Funimation, or not Funimation, 4Kids, a company that dubs anime for kids, they did Pokemon and a few other series, basically accidentally bought the rights to One Piece before it was huge, and tried to dub it not realizing what they'd bought. And I'm not going to often mention the funny things they did, but I really just need to tell you that the flashback, and we'll think about this through everything, the flashback for Nami, when Arlong shoots Bellemere through the heart, they replaced it with Arlong pointing a big finger at her and going, "You're gonna live in the dungeon!" And then Bellemere falls down shouting, "No!"
Awful.
Now,
it's literally the worst thing.
Now, we're not going to get there right now, but I also want to bring up the dungeon that ostensibly must be under the only building in Arlong Park. The one building. The one building in Arlong Park. In theory, the dungeon would be at the bottom of that, don't you think?
Yeah. That's it's just so bad. There's no words for it.
It's funny to think in the 4Kids dub what that means of the end of this arc. Because no one goes and finds Bellemere, obviously, because there wasn't the footage for it, so we know what happened.
I was just going to say, so then afterwards, he puts her in a dungeon, let's say, and then they defeat him, and then they're like, okay, let's go, and nobody was like, maybe we should go pick up Bellemere.
Well, sorry, where was she? The dungeon. Oh, you mean the one at the bottom of the tower I just collapsed?
God.
I just caved in a tower. All right.
That's disappointing.
Now we got to step into the part that I'm going to cry to think about before the walk up. The villagers have decided to go off. They tell Nami that they've known this whole time and they were just not telling her so she could leave, so that she didn't have to feel responsible, because they didn't want her to be bound to this life serving the person who killed her mother. And they decide they're done letting her suffer for them. They're going to confront Arlong.
Don't move past that part, because I got teary when I read, no matter how painful or insulting the rule was, as long as Nami was all right, we could choose to live in disgrace. We would fight on by surviving. But this is the last straw.
Yep.
I was like, oh, they knew the whole time.
Yep.
And they kept up the facade.
Just so that she could choose to leave, and if she wanted to leave, she wouldn't think that they'd been putting their hope in her.
Exactly. And when you think about the sacrifices made by all the people in this town, starting with, Bellemere and the girls and all the townspeople, and how all of them sacrifice. It's that thing again where they sacrifice their life because it's not more important than the bigger picture. Yeah. So it was pretty amazing when the town gets riled up and she's like, please just give me one more chance. I know it's not going to be easy, but please just let me do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, we can't let you carry this burden on your own. And so she runs ahead and she tries to go. Again, we have another person trying to stab themselves with a knife. I just want to point that out. Stabbing ourselves with a knife is a thing.
It's a common
tries to take out her tattoo. But
So
yeah,
mad
and
that
then,
she's let this man own her, that she needs to carve his mark out of her skin.
exactly. Like, I'm going to take it out. And I know a sad story that I won't tell of a person who had to
Okay.
do that. Well, it's not my story to tell.
Yeah.
It's an elder story to tell, and it has to do with residential school.
Very fair. Hey, if
but
anyone doesn't know about Canadian history, no, that's too sad. We shouldn't talk about that.
yeah, we're not going in that direction. But it really made me think of that idea. But I think the thing for me that got me the most in this moment was she's sitting there about to carve this out because they're saying, like, we appreciate you. You need to step aside, Nami. We're not stopping. You're the only one who's sacrificed. You're the only one who's given everything. The rest of us had to hold off and pretend we didn't know what was happening to give you the opportunity for freedom. But that day ends today. And so when does she lose hope? It's not, she doesn't lose hope when her life is at stake. She loses hope when she can't protect the village. And that's when she finally breaks and says, go away. Don't go anywhere. You don't know anything. Get lost. And then she sits there crying. And then you could see there's this one panel he makes where he says, I don't know anything. And then she grabs her fist in the ground and grabs a handful of dirt and says, this has nothing to do with you. And then it was in that moment that she just keeps sitting there, and it becomes clear that Luffy may be an idiot, but the one thing he's never an idiot about is humanity.
He knows what people need every time.
He knows what people need, and it shows it because he doesn't talk. He stands there from that moment when she breaks down and just waits. And then it shows his face, and then she sobs, and he just waits until she goes, Luffy, help. And that moment, gut punch.
It's so perfect. The moment where Luffy just needs her to accept that he doesn't need to know what's happening. He doesn't need to know the backstory. He doesn't need to know why. He just needs to know that his friend needs help. That's all it's gonna take for him to give everything for her. And when she finally caves in and says, Luffy, help me, and immediately he puts the hat on her head, she remembers what that means to her, that this is everything in the world to him, and that's so that he can handle this for her. He's trusting her with the most valuable thing he has.
It's really the only thing he has. Like, no matter what else is going on, the one thing that's always with him is his hat. He takes it off to put it on her head. It makes me think of something that your wife said, that Azadeh said. She once told me, when a kid gives you a rock, you have to treasure it because they don't have anything else but the one thing they had they gave to you.
Yeah.
And so it makes me think about that he's telling her in that moment, by putting the one thing on that he has, that he treasures her.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I couldn't more love that moment. I think it says so much. It's the moment for me that I realized as a protagonist, I was in love with Monkey D. Luffy, that I was going to follow him till he had accomplished his dream. Just like, it's just such a beautiful moment of, you're right, the waiting, the needing him to know, him needing to know that she wants to be helped, so that he's not just changing her life for her.
Exactly.
That she's asking for him to put himself on the line.
And he had to let her come to that place, because something that Oda does again and again is he doesn't let anything, greatness or evil or bad things happening to you, it's not by chance, it's by choice. Everything happens to be by choice. So this is one of those moments I noticed. Luffy could have said, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do this, but she was raging against him still. Just before that, she was talking about how he doesn't know anything. This isn't your fight. This isn't your problem. If you knew everything. And then in this moment, she has to choose to ask for help. And then the minute she chooses to bring down some of her barriers and ask for help, then he says, okay, And well, he literally says okay. He screams it with 5 exclamation marks.
Yeah.
So he super says okay.
Gonna make him pay.
Yeah. And then you have the flashback. She's holding the hat and he says, "Don't touch the hat, it's my treasure." And then she's holding the brim of the hat and realizes, I'm more important than his treasure. And then he walks up to his little crew, including Usopp, who at that time I couldn't believe he thought was a good person to go on the walk up with him, and said, and then they all look, he goes, "Let's go." And they all look at him and go, "Right."
And I think overall there's not that much the anime adds that's like that impactful of an addition. But we watched, I made you watch the Arlong Park walk up, and how fucking good is it?
Oh my god, it's ridiculous. It's so delicious when they're sitting there and saying, "These are the men who are going to change things for you. They are going to fight." Da, 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 da. And
you can't go past there. You don't stand a chance.
Oh, that slow walk up is just gorgeous. Yeah, I loved it.
God, and how the music is great, the voice acting, both versions. I'm showing you the English as far as it goes because it's just easier, but the Japanese VAs are incredible. I really like the Funimation crew, the current English voice actors. I think they do a great job. Everything about that scene is just lovely, and it's such a great start to the action part of the arc for Luffy to show up, punch down Arlong's door, and immediately say, "Which one of you is Arlong?" Because he's been so uninvolved that he doesn't know or care.
That's exactly it. I just thought that was amazing. He shows up and he's like, "Let's do this thing. Okay, which one of you is Arlong?
Whose ass am I gonna kick?"
It was such a cool moment. This fight was the beginning piece. Like, I know you were talking about how the art at the beginning of the chapters doesn't always mean things, but I think that he really hits some things in there. Like, he starts off the art in the beginning of this chapter where each character gets their own like little panel, and it goes stand by, and it shows Luffy with his incredible scar on full force in that like really dark black, and then stand by 2, and it has I think it's Zoro, and then stand by, and then it says stand the pain, and that's for Nami.
I think that one might be more meaningful. I think that art in particular was meant to be like a lead-in.
But it was such a great way to do it because it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you open the page, and the very first thing that happens when you open the chapter is, "Which one of you is Arlong?"
Yeah.
And so it's this really cool moment where he counts you down on the title page, and you're just like, damn. So even though it's not live action, even though you're reading it, it's one of those moments that he takes full advantage of it being a drawing and slows the reader down, so it counts you into the action and then starts you in it. And I was just so impressed with those decisions, and I could see like, this is for me maybe one of the moments where I was like, first time really seeing the power of manga.
It's something where if an artist takes really good advantage of the medium, there's so much you can do with it. It's honestly so brutal. I don't know if you could handle it, but I would love if you could, when way down in the future when we're done One Piece, Chainsaw Man takes advantage of the medium of manga better than any other comic in my opinion. But I love the moments like that where Oda manages to, with just pictures, slow down your reading and make you really take in the moment. Like, it creates a sense of apprehension, and it's so cool to be able to accomplish that in still pictures, just by changing how you space your panels, how you space the text to make the eye linger longer over an image so that you are taking time. It's really cool, and it's one of the hardest parts about comics is knowing how to control pace.
Exactly. And that's what I felt like. It not only controls the pace in that moment, it counts you in, it changes the way that the art is done, so it catches your eye and forces you to pause for a minute because it's so different than anything that's ever been done before. And then you're like, dang, like, this is cool. And then you realize, oh, it's got a please, it's like the please stand by. And then it shows each one of the characters, and then in your mind you can see like a film clip running with each one of them, and you're like, okay, that's so cool. And it slowed me down, and then when I changed the page, boom, all I see is Luffy walking in. Which one of you is Arlong? And I thought,
a great lead in.
That is one of the most brilliant ways to lead in, and this moment is so much cooler for it. And then he does the panels face to face, just full Luffy face, full Arlong face, full Luffy face. And that was such a cool moment because it took it down to the two people who the battle is starting with and who we as an audience know that it's probably going to end with. So it bookmarks that whole fight scene, right, between those two.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that because in the beginning we see just their faces, and then everyone else is going to come in and have their parts. And then I knew in the end we would see their faces again. And sure enough, at the end of this battle, it's the two of them.
Oh man, it's so good. The manga spacing it out like that really makes you appreciate that when the anime added the walk up, I think they were just doing a really good job at like, how do we make something similar to this? Because you couldn't have just done close-ups of faces in animation and had it have the same impact it has in manga. So the walk up feels like the animator's answer to, we need a way to slow roll this entrance and make you really feel the impact of the walk up, because what the manga did, where it says like stand by, all of those things, that's just not going to work in animation in the same way. So it's cool to see something be really unique to its medium have to be adapted into another medium in a creative way, and you get two really cool entrances out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You also get to see so many. So I don't know, because I don't know anything about manga. I don't know, or manga. Which way is it?
Manga, I think, is right, but I don't think that many people are pedantic about it. But yeah, manga is technically correct, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So because I don't know a lot about manga, but also I don't know a lot about the devil fruit or who is the way they are, just because that's who they are and they're different. So is his crew, like, are the fish people just a different breed of people?
Yeah, they're just different, like fantasy races, basically.
So Arlong has never eaten a devil fruit. He's just from a different race. Okay.
Yeah.
This battle scene that they have, I also thought was a really cool moment for the showcasing of each one of their things and finding out how badly hurt Zoro was, by the way.
Yep.
Which obviously he should have been. That made sense.
Where he's so fucked up that Arlong sees his wounds and is like, what's wrong with you? How are you moving?
Why are you standing and how are you not dead? And then the chapter title is called Zombie. And then that gives Hawkeye even more legend status, right? Because suddenly you're like, dang, Hawkeye.
He was able to exactly wound this man to the point that he's barely living.
Exactly, where he's just on the edge of being alive. But it also showcases each person's fighting ability in a really cool way. This whole fight scene, this whole piece. We get to see like the phenomenal sword fighting that he does with an 8-handed octopus, Hachi.
Yep.
And being able to see, it's almost like that being able to slow time down, because when Hachi does that move where he's spinning with all 8 going kind of like a helicopter pattern, and when he goes up into the air and lands, he goes right through them, because it's like he's able to slow time down. Felt very Matrix, and land in the midst of them. So you get to see each one of their fighting styles. But I think, and the cow comes back, and thank God, because I was worried about the damn cow.
You were worried about Momu?
Oh, Momu is one of my favorites, and when he comes back, he has a little owie on his head. He's got a bump. He's got tears. He doesn't want to have to fight. He's in pain. He just wants to leave, and I'm like, no, Momu. And when they force him to fight, and he's just so hurt by having to be evil, I was so glad when Momu was used, even though the look in his eye when Luffy grabs him and uses him as a spinning wheel and smashes everyone and throws him, the look in his face was just heart-wrenching.
You mean the incredible martial arts technique of the Gumu Gumu no pinwheel? Sorry,
that's the one.
Yeah, Gum Gum Pinwheel. Sorry, we're reading English.
And then when I thought about that, the Gum Gum Pinwheel, and pinwheels being that idea of they can also be known as being childish, or going back to childhood ideas, made me think about how many times, like, kids are fighting and pick a friend up and swing them around to use their legs to hit people with them.
I think there's something very fun about how anytime Luffy sees something neat, like, I guess this is the first time we see it, but Luffy just seeing something he thinks is neat and being like, I wonder if I can turn that into an attack.
Yeah, exactly. I think that this fight scene was easier to understand than the fight scene that took place out at the restaurant for me.
The paneling is starting to get better.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot more clear because he really likes to put a lot of stuff in the background often.
Yeah, there's a lot of mangaka like Akira Toriyama of Dragon Ball really like to keep everything really open and clean and spaced out with a lot of white. Oda really likes a background, for better and for worse. It makes the world feel a lot fuller, but it does make the art busy.
Yeah, I would agree. And he talks in some of his panels about how he has a team of, I think it was 3, it might have been 4 people helping him with backgrounds. And I thought about how the people who do his backgrounds don't have to have disappointing little pieces that he gives them a lot of work. Like he lets them take a lot of the piece on.
So apparently it varies part to part nowadays because he doesn't like to let them do stuff that's moving or important. So if the background's not that important, he's like, yeah, go for it. But if the background involves moving pieces, he's like, nah, I'm gonna take this.
Yeah. What was the other thing I was thinking of? Okay, so now we go into the piece where we get to see, can't believe I'm saying this out loud. Where we get to see Usopp's
redemption. Isn't it good, though? Isn't it good to see your boy strategize and have to work hard and come to terms with him not being self-actualized?
Well, what was interesting is we've already seen Usopp because we went over it on the thing, but then when we come back into here, the thing that I thought was amazing about Usopp's thing is that thing that I was talking about with Oda about choice and how he's not going to let anyone just accidentally become great and work against their character. But something else that I noticed that I really love about Oda's decisions is he doesn't try to make anyone perfect. He's not trying to make Luffy be a perfect person or Zoro or Sanji or anyone. Or obviously Nami, because some people still haven't forgiven her.
There are some people, one of them might be in chat, who do not like Nami.
Who still haven't forgiven her from the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this one, I was really amazed that he doesn't change Usopp's character entirely and be like, hey, Usopp, whose name comes from the idea of Aesop's fables, but also the word for lie in Japanese, and then has a nose like Pinocchio. Instead, he says, yeah, those things about you are still going to be true. And at the same time as those things about you are true, you're a liar, you're a fable and a storyteller, but those can be strengths. And then he has Usopp sit there in the dirt and be like, I can't go back looking like this because nobody would believe that I've been in a battle if this is how I come back, and they wouldn't believe that it was an honorable loss, And he starts to do the things that a storyteller and a liar would do that are within his character choices. He says, okay, I'm going to rub dirt on myself. Is this enough dirt to look like I've gone through something? Does this ketchup look enough like blood? And he starts to do all these little things that would be a way for him to tell the lie of I was in a big battle and I was overpowered and I barely survived, and how amazing that is. And as he's doing it, he gets this look in his eyes and you see him realize nobody's around him. Nobody is there making the choice for him. And he chooses for himself that he just realizes, holy shit, I am not the person that I want to be.
It's beautiful that there doesn't need to be a pressure on it other than him.
Exactly. There's nothing outside anymore. It's just him. He could have done anything in that moment. He could have continued on with his normal character development, been the person he was, but instead he goes still and he decides in that moment, whereas before it felt like he would have a rash decision to suddenly do something good. Like,
Mhm.
I'm running away. Oh crap, I can't run away. Run back. Okay, I'm good for a second. Run away again.
Mhm.
But at this time, he sits still in his change. It isn't temporary, and it isn't an accidental or just an impulse. It's a decision. And because it's a decision, then Oda lets him change as a person. And
Absolutely.
I was like, God damn it. Now I like Usopp.
It the fact that he's weaker than the rest of the crew, that he hasn't been trained for combat with the same skills, it makes it so compelling for him to have that moment of change. And you go, that's great, buddy, but how do you win now? And watching him, you're right, he doesn't get to change his character. Lying and storytelling and trickery is how he wins the fight. Like,
Exactly.
he uses those as an asset. Is he a coward? Yeah, he's good at hiding.
Yeah.
Is he a liar?
Yeah.
He makes someone catch something when it's a trap.
Yeah.
Is he a storyteller? Yeah, he is able to create situations where the person thinks they're safe when they're vulnerable. Everything that makes him who he is part of how he wins the fight when he finally manages to get his courage together and stand and fight to be the man he wants to be.
Exactly. And it's that thing that I noticed with the other things that Oda did, where he's not trying to say, okay, when you have decided to do things great and you have decided to be a better person, it doesn't mean it changes who you are. It means that you use who you are in a way that is good and powerful instead of a way that is weak and ungood. I don't want to say bad, because not everyone is bad, but it's just this choice to be good, to be strong, to stand up for what you believe in. But Oda forces his characters to make that choice, good and bad. Like, his bad characters choose to be bad and choose to see, Arlong says the only thing of any value is money. So everyone chooses the thing.
Yeah, and you're so right about that. I like there, and this comes up throughout the series, that there is a, even if you understand why a villain might be villainous, like, it doesn't excuse what they're doing because it is a choice they've made to be awful, to be evil, to cause harm. My little computer I used to check chat was not charging, so I had to do a quick fix there. We all good now. Choice is very important. Usopp winning the fight was my first watch through one of my favorite parts of Arlong Park, because it feels so good to see him succeed because he put effort in and because he took a risk. And I always also just love when someone wins a fight despite being the weaker combatant, just by being smart. And it's something that's great about One Piece power scaling, that, like, you get a real sense for power scaling. Like, you know who's stronger than who when two people fight, but that doesn't mean you know who's gonna win. And that's so much more engaging than if all you're figuring out is who's stronger, where you're like, oh, once we figure out which of these characters is stronger, we know the winner. I really like that you don't necessarily know that you can go, yeah, Chu is stronger than Usopp, but Usopp can still win.
Yeah, 100%. So I thought that it was incredible, because I also, and I will talk about that more in the prediction side, but immediately we see the birth for Usopp of him becoming a tinker alchemist. That he's now decided that he's going to be the person who has like a bazillion vials in their coat and starts making weird contraptions and using them, because it's almost like the alchemy itself is his version of lies. And he's using that as a method to win his fights.
That's kind of an interesting thing to pick up on there, that he's using all of these little, like, gadgets and techniques a lot more cleverly, and that's what he's building his fighting style around here.
Yeah, well, because he is a storyteller and a liar. That is his base character based on his name, right? So then it seems like that's what he's doing. He's using those as he's telling stories with tinkering and with alchemy, and those are his stories that he tells, and they're also methods of lying. Like, right away he has ketchup packages to prove that he's been hurt. Oh, he thought that he had gotten me bloody. So it's clear using this, and it's kind of in my prediction area, that Usopp is going to become like a high level kind of tinker alchemist type person.
All right.
But I want to get.
So now we.
But I don't think we were ready to get into predictions yet. By the way,
that's gonna be after Logtown.
I just came in here. My God, I'm loving this picture.
Thank you. So let's get into the big jumble fight that happens for a while, where Hachan. I'm not going to remember the manta ray. He's the only one of the fishmen I can't remember the name of. Hachan, Arlong, Zoro, Sanji, Luffy are all kind of in the mix for a while before it splits off to Hachi and Zoro, Manta Ray and Sanji, and Luffy and Arlong.
Yeah.
What are our thoughts here?
Okay, what chapter are we in? I'm trying to go back to be in the proper
I cannot
place.
remember the chapter's name, the chapter numbers.
Okay, let's take a peek, because I don't want to get this one.
Kurobi is the manta ray. Okay.
All right, we are in like chapter 84. We talked a little bit about this already, the standing up, the fighting with Hacha.
Luffy drowns here.
Yeah, okay. I do want to talk about this drowning moment. And you know right away when you find out that the gum it doesn't allow you to swim, that this is going to come up again and again and again. Yeah. And I'm like, I was thinking to myself, how many different ways am I going to see people save Luffy's life from the bottom of water?
Double fruit users have some trouble with water. It's an issue they have.
And so it was really funny because when they had him at the bottom, I'm like, how are they going to do this? And when she gets the look on her face and she goes, I know. She stretches his neck up to the top and starts to give him mouth to mouth on the top while doing chest compressions underwater. I was like, that kind of a stupid method would make Luffy so proud. He would be like, stupid genius is what it is. It's the stupid genius of Luffy.
It's so dumb, but I really love that that's the solution. That even though he's fucking drowning, his body's still made of rubber, so they just stretch his head out so that they can give him CPR while he's being freed. It's great. I love it. It's very dumb.
Absolutely fantastic.
It's very funny.
Genius levels. And then I wanted to know, do you know if his head is out of water but his body is still in water, does he still lose hope?
It's not really hope. It's like it basically
a will to live.
Still, it's not even will. It's still water weakens their body and their ability to move. So basically, anytime if he's in like rapids and stuff, if they seem to be able to thrash slightly longer. Devil fruit users can shower safely because it's just water rolling over them, but baths make them weak, and if they lower themselves more and more into the water, they tend to get weaker and weaker and weaker until fully submerged, fully can't move.
Because I read a part here where I thought that he said that Luffy being underwater would mean that he loses hope or will to live.
That might be how it actually is, and it's just been described in series as a physical thing after that fact, because I don't remember that SBS answer, and that would fit in with the themes of the series pretty well if it just drains you of will. I'm not sure. All I know for sure is the more submerged they are in water, the weaker they start to get.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so if Luffy was standing in knee-deep water, he'd be weakened but could probably still move. If he were like submerged up to his waist, he'd be woozy but could probably barely stand up. And beyond that, starts to drown.
Okay, that makes sense to me. This entire fight, heroism versus fishman cruelty. This entire fight, I liked it better than any fight that I had read before in the series.
It's a good one.
It did it in good chapters. Like I said before, I think that he drew it better, more understandable in a way that I can get it. And he kept the pieces alive. Like Zoro and Sanji were still obsessed with getting under the water to rescue Luffy the entire time. So it wasn't like sometimes where I feel like even the characters were losing track of what was taking place. I felt like in this one, both the reader and the characters were aware of what was taking place and what had to happen. So I appreciated it, and it made more sense. It was also just well drawn in like the panels that were underwater where there's fishman karate and forearm sledge to the back of the head, and the panels were actually really impactful, and they brought you into the fight and you could actually feel the ferocity of the fight, so it felt like you were in part of the action.
Yeah,
And that's what I was
the
talking
action
about
definitely
when I was
hits harder.
Exactly. And that's what I was saying when it felt like kabuki, like the way that he had done each of these frames felt like I was seeing a moment in dance. And when I saw it, it was impactful. I said that just as I turned the page to a Gafam pom bomb to some face. Very impactful. And so I felt like the fight was, I was able to get into it more because it was more readable. And I loved that we got to see the ways in which each character fighted, and it gave everyone a moment to kind of stand out. The bad guys too. I hate the bad guy with the weird freaking triangle things on his arms.
Yeah, no, that's the guy I was saying I don't like. Someone put his name like Kurobi a little while ago. He's bad to look at.
Ugh. It looks like his skin melted and is just kind of wobbling down there. And every time I'd see it, I'd be like, why is he drawing that? What's going on with that kid's arm? And then I'd be like, oh no, that's a stupid arm. I forgot.
He's just a manta ray fish man.
Yeah, I understand what he is. I don't like it. Not a fan. Not a fan of the man. It's really glad he stopped fighting.
I love that the solution Sanji came up with of just like, what the fuck am I doing? He needs gills to breathe underwater. Otherwise, he's got to be on the surface like me, where I'm stronger than him, and just covers his goddamn gills while he's trying to pull all this bullshit.
That was genius. Love that moment. Yeah, that was absolutely awesome. You know what else I really liked is when Usopp comes back after his fight and his change. I love that he stands there going, I'm here to back you up, Luffy, no matter how bad things go now, because Usopp's like, I can do anything. He's got this new, like, I kicked butt. And there was just one panel where Luffy goes, what? And looks at him all confused, like, who the hell is this? What changed in him? And I thought that was a really cool moment. The guy that he was fighting, what's the name of the guy that Usopp was fighting with the big lips?
Chu, which is a Japanese onomatopoeia for kiss, I believe.
Yeah, it is, because he's a kissy fish. And Chu is also, is he supposed to be like a Mick Jagger?
I don't know what his deal is. I think he's just meant to be a kissy fish.
I'm telling you, he's a little Mick Jagger.
He's not Mick Jagger. It's not enough that I'm going to say solidly I think he is, but there's no Mick Jagger in that fish.
Yeah, he feels like a little Mick Jagger to me. I was like, this dude is kind of bringing me some small Mick Jagger kisses the life out of you vibes. Yeah, I liked that one. I liked that character. I think he was a good evil villain.
Go ahead. Something I want to do at the end of this is we're going to wait. Just keep this in the back of your head. At the end, I think we're going to go beyond the 2 hours than I'd planned because we're getting into a lot. But at the very end of this, I want to go over the rundown of your favorite henchmen so far, because I think favorite villains gets a lot of play. But I think the henchmen in One Piece can be very, very fun, and I'm curious to see where they stand for you.
Yeah, okay. I don't know how well we'll be able to go through them all, but 100%.
All right.
I love when Nami comes back to the fight. Her mind is made up. I have to go and join the fight. And she comes walking out, because regardless of what's taking place with Luffy under and above water, with them trying to resuscitate him back into life, the thing that makes this battle particularly cool to me is that when you see each one of these people coming to fight, you're like, you can't do it. The only one that can do it is Luffy. But again, it's timing. And so there's a realization that Oda has made it so whether the contribution is big or small, each one of these people in the team are required in order to give enough time for Luffy to be brought back to do the fight with Arlong.
Absolutely. It's really good action storytelling to make everybody involved instead of just have them be bystanders who are watching.
And not just even involved, but meaningfully involved.
Necessary for the win. They're
necessary for the, exactly. It's not like, when you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and realize that if he hadn't have been there, the exact same plot would have taken place. It's that every single one of these people is essential in order for the battle to have been won. And that also means that in the end, when Luffy is having his final confrontation, all the people are there to be a part of it. And I think that's pretty cool too, because it lets the town feel involved and it lets the town feel the battle. And so that's a big deal for people who have been under control for 8 years to feel like they get a part in watching the bad guy get taken down, and they get to see how it's done, and that the win becomes more meaningful.
I absolutely agree. I think you've also touched on something that I think is important about One Piece compared to a lot of other shonen series. So there is a bad rap that a lot of shonen series get where the hero wins with the power of friendship. And the way that trope often manifests is by someone saying, my friends are my strength. And because their friends are counting on them or whatever, they get like a power boost. I think a lot of series do this. I think the worst offender is technically not shonen, the publisher, Fairy Tail. But the reason I really like how One Piece handles that is Luffy's friends aren't his strength because they give him some ephemeral boost to want to fight harder. They're his strength because he can't do what he wants without them. He can't, and he says it in this fight, he can't use swords, he can't cook, he can't navigate, and he can't lie. And he's okay with that because he knows he needs his friends because he knows they need him. And that's okay. Like, there is tangible help they provide each other. And all that matters is that in the end they win.
And Arlong even says it, like, what do they have from you? He says, I can't do this, and this person can't. He just says all the things he can't do. And then he says, Arlong goes, then what do you provide them as a leader? And he goes, I can beat you.
Which is such a fucking good answer.
And like, that's exactly what I was trying to say, is that not only do they all value each other, they value each other with reason. Each one of them are bringing something to the table that the other ones are not. And so when Luffy's people are all coming out and helping him, he knows they're not just intangibly helping him. It's real. He needs it. And so when each one of them go up to fight Arlong and his henchmen, that had to happen, or there wouldn't have been the moment when Luffy was freed from the rock and came back, because it would have been too late and Luffy would have drowned. And it took everyone to bring them back to this place where Arlong could be defeated.
And even
I also wanted to point out that somebody talked about how they wanted to talk about the panels in between in the Kobe and Halempo. Yeah, and that should absolutely be mentioned before we forget. But the other thing that I wanted to mention,
I think before we head on to Logtown, we'll do that along when we're talking about the thing I'm drawing.
Agree. I think that another thing that needs to be mentioned too that I didn't talk about is one of the panels, and I think it's for chapter 86, but it might be for chapter 87, and I'll check. But they have a title page where Nami is just sitting there on like a train station. Almost. No, it's a dock. She's sitting on a dock, and in the background there is a signpost, and one way has a signpost to justice and one to bad conduct. And she's wearing a t-shirt with Panda Man on it, which is kind of hilarious. And she has a bag and a purse, and sitting beside her is a white seal in a headkerchief. And then if you look up the meaning of a white seal in Japanese, it's foretelling of happy times with family. And so her mom, having the headkerchief on, it looks similar to the one her mom used to wear all the time. But it also is
about
in
found
French.
Family.
Yes. Oh. And then it's also a good sign in friendship that you have adventures together ahead of you.
Aw, and that's right at the end of the Arlong Park arc.
Yeah, and so it's this this sign. The symbolism is kind of a sign of the adventures to come with friends.
Aw.
And found family. And I thought that was pretty cool.
So to wrap up Arlong Park, we have the end of the Luffy versus Arlong fight, and then Nami's choice to go, how she says goodbye to the village, and then we'll move on to the in-between stories. I wish it had been seeded earlier, but I really love it ending in the room where Nami was forced to make all the charts and Luffy just absolutely destroying everything.
That was amazing. What a cool choice to make that decision, because you're thinking that when they're in this room, that the thing that he's going to focus on is, you know, kicking Arlong's ass. Like that would be the natural thing you would think the focus would be onto. And up until then, all the chapters were about this. And instead, when he looks around the room and has this like this understanding of who Nami is and where she came from, because earlier Nami said, you don't know anything, you don't understand anything. And he maybe didn't, because Luffy was on the outskirts of all the moments of understanding of her. But instead of just leaving that out, which they could have done, they let Luffy see the heart of where her captivity took place and why she was being used by Arlong and how he would never let her go. It was impossible for him to let her go. And what that meant. And instead of continuing to fight Arlong, fighting the room on behalf of Nami, I got teary again.
Her seeing all of the bookcases fly out and just saying Luffy while watching him destroy her prison is just wonderful.
100%. When he was, fishermen are excellent at gathering ocean data, but without a good cartographer, it's worthless. No one else in the world can draw. And then he says, Nami's a genius. And Luffy says, I see. And then he looks down and he says, this pen has blood on it. And then he understands how many hours Nami sat there as his slave.
I think there's something so important to this scene too, because Arlong represents racial prejudice in the sense of believing your race is superior to another. And unlike our world, there are physiological differences. But the fact that he says we're superior to humans over and over and over and over again, and then at the end of the arc, when he's about to get his fucking ass kicked, and he's talking about how he needs Nami, a human, to be able to do what he's doing, and he's gone out of his way, gone back on his word that he's so proud of just to keep her, because he's not good enough without this human. It's such a mark of the gaps in logic you need to maintain a prejudiced mind in terms of racism, that like he acknowledges he has need of a human, but isn't willing to acknowledge that humans are worthy of respect and capable of greatness. I think it's beautiful and it's necessary.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, Lynn. Like, I really think that you nailed something there, because it's important to recognize that that gap of knowledge thing that you're talking about is really kind of the crux, where Luffy is like not falling into that belief and not allowing himself to feel lesser than. And then we're being shown what an idiot Arlong is for believing that he's so superior when we see this room, but we also see it with a tiny little Nami in it as a tiny child in the flashback panels. And already an 8-year-old was essential to his plans. So if you're such a better master fish race and you're so awesome and you're so much better than everyone, how could that be possible, that gap in knowledge, when we're watching that gap be filled by this tiny little person? And also a girl. And we know that in society all over the place, we underestimate and undervalue women.
Nami
and so
being
to have it
introduced, sorry, you go, I'll keep this thought.
Just having it being a tiny little girl, I think, made it even that much more powerful to be able to see the gap in his logic.
That brings something up. Well, the objectification in women in a lot of ways in One Piece that's typical of Japanese media isn't great. I say lightly, it's a thing we all look past to love the series. I think there's a type of feminism that people have started to turn against that I think One Piece isn't part of, where women are only valuable in masculine-led stories when they fill a masculine role of being fighty and taking charge and doing all the things associated with men culturally. And I think Oda actually does a very good job at having women be important even when that's not what they're doing. And there are women who fight in One Piece, like Kuina makes it clear that there are going to be women who fight, but like Nami has fought, but she's not predominantly a fighter. Why does she help Arlong? Why is she needed? Because she's an incredible navigator. That's something ungendered. That's something that she can do without having to be made masculine as a character. She maintains her femininity while still being essential to Luffy's survival and to Arlong's plans.
Yeah, she can be whatever she feels like she needs to be, because there are other characters who are females in here, and you know, not to say the masculine and feminine roles, there are other characters in here who are fighters, who are female, but I like that he just lets Nami be who she is. She is a genius, and she's a cartographer, and he allows her to have that strength, starting it when she's a child too, when we're talking about valuing children. Unlike red hair Shanks, who wouldn't let Luffy join in the pirates when he was a little boy, insisted that he got to grow up. We see the exact opposite with Arlong, where he takes over a child and forces her to work for using her potential when she's just a baby, when a little child.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal fight, but let's also just take a moment for the very, very ending piece of the fight.
That's what I was gonna say.
When Luffy stands out of the rubble with his fists clench.
Yeah.
Delightful. Absolutely delightful.
It's so cathartic. You want Arlong dealt with so badly. You want him to get fucked up. And it's so beautiful, the symbolism of like Arlong talking about how he's superior, he's better, Luffy can't match him, look at all what I've built, you could never. And at the end, he just lets himself be an animal. His final big attack he's gonna finish off Luffy with is just a bite, just goes to fucking chomp him. And not only does Luffy's neck. Yeah, not only does Luffy's finishing move, the Gum Gum Battle Axe, take out Arlong, but it takes out everything he's built. It destroys everything he's held up. The entire room, the tower, all of it's destroyed in that final attack, and Luffy stands atop all of it, victorious. And now I want to get into the thing I wanted to talk to you about last time. Remember when we were talking about Gaimon, you said how you felt it was really important for a story to have moments that weren't high intensity.
100%.
The best parts of One Piece, according to Oda, are the parties, where the crew has been victorious and they get to party.
Okay, I just want to say before that, Luffy's words to her, Nami, from the top of Arlong Park rubble. And she looks up at him and just stands there, and he goes, "You're one of us now."
Yep.
And then she goes, and then she cries and goes, "Uh-huh." And that, nothing else. She doesn't need to say anything else.
It's beautiful. I'm tearing up. That's lovely.
That's such a powerful moment. And then at the very, very end, after they have that little fight with the ocean mouse, and then Nami gets to come up and plop Luffy's hat back on him. I'm just like, oh, dang. Okay, yeah.
So
the
good. The party. It's quick. It's not that much, but the crew getting to talk about their exploits and be celebrated by the town, and everyone who's been oppressed for years being happy and cheering, a feast being thrown for the Straw Hat Pirates, them being sent off with a goodwill in the hearts of the villagers, making an ally. It's beautiful, and I love it. I love when the crew parties, and it's just great.
It's so important. It just lets you as a reader take a moment to have a little breath and be like, oh gosh, it's done, thank God. and then you get to celebrate with them, because if you don't, it feels like the fights just roll in together and you're like, are we gonna take a moment here? And
it did a little bit between Baratier and Arlong Park. The fights rolled 100%. Into each other, but the fact that it gets to be followed up with the party makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree. It was an awesome little party. And then, but it also rolls into, just before that, we've got the, okay, what the hell with the snails?
So that's communication in One Piece, is telepathic snails, naturally telepathic snails that are affixed to different types of little tech that uses their telepathy.
Of course, as one does.
Yeah. That's how you phone someone, is with your snail phone. As
normally, as one would say.
Yeah, the Dendemushi.
Which totally reminds me of the Kabuki Kabuku. It's going to be out of the ordinary. I thought it was pretty fascinating when suddenly I was like, oh, telepathic snails. I see then. Love to see Luffy get a big old juicy price on his head. Like,
yeah, bigger than Arlong's. And it's made clear Arlong's price should have been higher. Like, so in theory,
they were wrong.
Yeah, like the government, they basically make it clear that he's been bribing that Marine so that he can be kept on the down low, and 20 million was not enough. Even though it's the highest in the East Blue, it should have been much, much higher. And in theory, Luffy's would be higher if people knew what a threat Arlong was, and Captain Nezumi had not been hiding Arlong's power and threat to the East Blue. So, like, Luffy, in theory, already should have a higher bounty, and we can already tell, like, he's considerably stronger than what he's been up against, but he still now starts with the highest bounty in the East Blue.
Yeah.
And
so then the party after
yeah, no, you go.
Sorry, and it's night fell at last. The sea was calm once more. The whole island celebrated that night and continued on the following night. Okay, you gotta love a party that's a 2-dayer that lasts through, 3 days, 2 nights. Everybody living in the moment. Now that I know that Odo has said how important parties are and how much he likes them, I'm going to start paying more attention. I already noticed there's a bunch of numbers and letters on shirts that I'm going to pay more attention to.
No, sometimes he does just put people in shirts with stuff on it.
Sometimes a cigar is not just a cigar.
He does just sometimes put shirts on people because he needs to have background characters who aren't wearing nothing of import.
100%, but I'm just going to pay attention.
All right.
I also like how even though Usopp has had this big moment, he doesn't lose his character. He's still standing on top of the thing, pretending to be Captain Usopp, screaming down about how he brought everyone down when everybody was there watching it.
My guy, we saw, like no one who didn't have to take care of kids that day wasn't there.
Exactly. And the ones who were would have told, but he just goes on with his big tales and everyone listens to it. And it's almost like they are enjoying him and his tales.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
And then we have the goodbye that made me cry, where we have him pouring a drink over top of the grave and saying goodbye to Maribel and telling her how well her daughters have grown up.
Oh,
God. A heart wrencher. And then the changing of the tattoo. Oh.
Turning it into a pinwheel and a tangerine.
And the pinwheel is so important. And that's what I was saying by knowing the symbolism of things is important, because knowing what the pinwheel means now and having her put it on her, having faith and remembering times that were better and keeping some childlike love in your heart. I was like, my God, that's amazing. So I absolutely adored the whole tattoo part. I think that was the perfect way to close out not only that chapter, but this whole first section.
It's a great end to the gathering of the crew era of One Piece, the initial crew being gathered.
Yeah.
Because
I think that Go ahead.
You'll remember, of course, that Luffy, when he first left, said he'll need a crew of about 10 people or so.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering how many people it was. What, somebody said 56 is Goma?
Oh, yeah. No, we're talking about future things. Don't worry about it.
Okay, I'll get out of there.
Luffy's special number is 56 because you can read the kanji, I believe, that make up 56 as Gomu, which is Japanese for rubber. His fruit in Japanese is the Gomu Gomu no Mi.
How do I pronounce it? Is it Katu? The person who's making...
Kaitu?
Kaitu? I love that. That's
I'm
a good
sure.
point. That the bounties aren't power scaling. It's just to show how dangerous the government thinks they are. That's a good thing to remember, but it's also an amazing moment because it almost feels like when you get commercials on YouTube, you're like, yay, we're commercial worthy. And it's the same thing for...
You were very excited about that today, huh? Yeah, we got commercials on YouTube now.
Yeah. I went to watch
something. It's harder to watch the video.
It made me watch a commercial and I was like, whoa, commercial worthy. And it's kind of like that little moment where the government is like, look how dangerous. And you're like, ooh, look how powerful the government thinks we are.
It also means it's the end of this being seen as Zoro's crew because Luffy's officially a pirate captain with a bounty.
Exactly. So once you get to this point and you have a higher bounty on your head than Zoro, then that's it. You're
Yep,
the one in charge.
no one's gonna be like, these are Zoro's crewmates, like the fishmen were the whole time. Kaito
I
Luminous.
I adored the decision they made with Nami to have her, because that would have been her character. She wouldn't have wanted a bunch of thanks and stuff from the people in the town. Wait, Nami, you can't just leave us like this. And she's like, oh, you bet I can. And just burns through. My favorite thing was when she jumps onto the ship and then they're like, where's our bullets? And she dumps everything out on the ground and is like, take
I
care, everyone.
doesn't want to be missed too bad.
Not only that, but it's again that thing that I was talking about, that Oda is really great at letting people change and grow and get better,
Mhm.
and understanding that you are going to adapt and change as you grow, but that he lets his characters keep themselves too. He doesn't expect them to become something entirely new to change for the better. And that's really important, because I think a lot of people think that in order to be the good guy, in order to be powerful, in order to do great things, in order to become a great musician or whatever it is, that everything about them has to be reworked. And Oda is saying, like, no, you can just keep being you, but make the choice to do things that are more meaningful.
And I also like her saying it is about agency again, where she's like, no, I'm still going to be obsessed with getting money because now I actually get money. I've spent so long getting treasure and having to make it my whole life. Now I get to get money and be excited that I get to buy things instead of throwing it in a pile for a fish.
And it's for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that reclaiming of agency, that she's still the person she was, money hungry, going around trying to steal from pirates, but now she gets to have it. She gets freedom.
Yeah, exactly. And so now that this is for her, this is not only for her, but she got to choose this new life because of the help the people in the town gave her, and the belief they had in her, and how they kept her safe for 8 years while she was doing this work for Arlong. And it's kind of a really cool moment where she pays them back by taking from them. I really love that.
I do too. I'm a big fan of it.
Before we move out and go into the next little section, do you want to have a little talk about the Kobe and Helmeppo's?
Well, I think we'll do Kobe and Helmeppo's cover story while as part of talking about the news coups delivering. The news coups are the little seagulls who deliver the news. The news coups
Is that
delivering.
a seagull? That doesn't look like a seagull. That's a
They're
seagull?
fun little seagulls. Yeah.
I thought he was like something else. I don't know what I thought he was.
But yeah, we can. Let's talk about people getting the bounty posters and Kobe and Helmeppo. Let's do Kobe and Helmeppo first, I guess, and then we'll talk about. We'll finally get to the thing I've been trying.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, while I've been watching this, the Helmeppo being stolen and taken off by Morgan, is it odd to say that I was thrilled that Morgan is more powerful and more bad than we were going to let to be believed? Because at first he was like, yeah, and he was easily captured, and now the Navy is taking him. And then to have him be there and end up taking over the ship that he's on, absconding away with a boat and taking Helmeppo, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I fully get you. Like, it really does feel like the only reason he wasn't a threat is because, like, Luffy and Zoro are both very fucking strong, to the point that, have you noticed that Zoro has had to be handicapped at every single major fight?
Yes.
Like, just so that you can't really know how he and Luffy stack up, Zoro has been handicapped every bad guy so far.
Yeah. And that's really important to show that at full strength, he would be way too much of a threat.
Yeah.
And like, he ends up getting handicapped as a method. And right now it's because we're in zombie Zoro.
Getting all carved up by Mihawk.
It's just gotten carved up and is still healing from it. But it's a really interesting thing to think, like, yeah, he's had to be handicapped. But at the same time, when I was looking at Captain Morgan, the reason I think I loved so much that he was able to do that is Captain Morgan used to be slightly handicapped by being a member of the Navy. So there's only so much of a baddie you can be when you still have to remember that you're part of a larger piece, like that's supposed to be the quote unquote good guy. And so is he a good guy? No. But now that he was captured by the very thing that he used to work for, he's able to throw those shackles down and say, oh, okay, wait till you see me now. And I love that idea because I was like, I would have loved to have seen more with Morgan, because I think that he could be a truly remarkable villain. And when I saw
potential there.
Yeah. And when I saw him in the Kobe and Helmeppo, I was like, oh, dude's going to escape. I'd never been so excited to see the next start of a chapter to see if it was going to be them, because I was like, he's definitely going to escape. And in the moment where we see especially since it's being done in a single panel, right? Because it's being done as a title page. When we see him take over, and the way that we have to wait all the way until another chapter, and then sometimes Oda's like, oh, did I forget to show that again? You're zooming through trying to find out where he is.
There's one of those that happened recently that you're gonna hate.
You are a person who needs to remember that I will remember everything.
I mean, all I told you was that there's a cover story where he goes away from the thing you want to see. That's not a spoiler.
I don't.
No one can call it a spoiler. Hey, people watching on YouTube. Sorry, just real quick. People watching on YouTube. You notice that the counter didn't go up for the not spoilers? That's because it's just not a spoiler. There's no air quotes. Let's keep going. Sorry.
Oh, so you're going to continue with the not a spoiler?
Yeah, I think I've avoided any this time, but I didn't think I'd done 14 last time, and then I edited it and was like, oh, I did 14 of these.
So I adore that, and I can't wait to see where Odo goes with it. I am going to, if you remind me, put Morgan in my predictions. Because
I will try.
I have an area that I think that Morgan is going to go into. Okay, these birds, these seagulls coming to all the boats and delivering the newspaper also makes you feel like there's a legitimacy to pirates. Like, you may see you don't see them as just being bad guys. There are these 7 warlords who are the pirates who are caring for each area, et cetera. But when you see a news bird come down and deliver to them, they just feel like they're part of the system. The pirates are part of the system.
Well, they have to pay for it, and if anyone fucks with a news bird and doesn't pay, the news crews stop delivering to them.
Exactly. And so it was kind of an interesting thing where you just saw them as part of regular old society. They're just part of the society that's pirating. And then on that same page is where we first see Usopp playing around with his killer pepper sauce star. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly where I thought you were going, Usopp. And I see you in the future as being a person who just has Tinker Toys all over himself and is using them as an extension of your lies and storytelling. And the having a grove of tangerines on there, love the reminder that there is symbolism of wealth as well, and that when they're there, it fills her heart with a feeling of love. And then Sanji protecting them. Sanji and his feelings for Nami. Is it bad that I never want him to get Nami?
No, that's exactly what you should think.
I never want Nami to be interested in him. He can continue to be obsessed with her, but I would love it if she was just like, that's nice. Thanks, Sanji.
The boy has been pet, everybody. Don't worry.
Was the boy there? Did I miss the boy?
No. Just someone redeemed pet the boy is what it's called, and he's sitting beside me right now.
I love that baby. Okay.
He's a good baby.
We sail off into the sunset. We see what's going on, and what a cool panel when we see the headquarters under the direct control of the world government. So you're saying that our branch units are unable to deal with these pirates? That's correct. And having them all lined up down this big hall, sitting with their arms crossed. I mean, we'd like to see a lady, but I'm happy to see this panel. It was so high contrast, big open spaces, and then crowded with these powerful people along the edge. I love that piece, this whole scene where they decide how much bounty they're going to put on Monkey D. Luffy's head. And congratulations, Luffy. 30 million. Nothing to sneeze at. Oh, no. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm listening.
Okay. The thing went back. Sorry. So It sounded like you weren't. And then we go off from there to this town. What's the name of the town?
Okay, so there is a debate about this. Is it Roguetown because it's where pirates and rogues go to? Or is it Logtown because it's where the prologue, the first 100 chapters of the East Blue end, and where the life of Goldie Roger ended, and might be where the next Pirate King's life ends in the epilogue?
Wait, no.
There's a debate. There's a debate that Luffy might be executed there because Gold Roger was, and it would be the prologue's end and the epilogue's end then.
First of all, terrible. It says Roguetown in the beginning.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you, the R's and L's sometimes trip it up because they can only get info from Oda if he's willing to disclose it.
Yeah, agreed. It's why I kept calling Zoro Zolo, not just because it was said with an L, but because I taught a child whose name started with an R, but it was pronounced with a kind of rolling L.
Mm-hmm. There's difficulty with the R's and L's, but yeah, I lean toward Logtown for this because I really like the idea of it being the epilogue and the prologue of the story.
I have another prediction based off this town.
Okay, we're gonna have a lot of predictions today. I'm really excited.
I don't know
in the
if I
Direct Show chat,
many,
get ready in the notes channel, in the Discord.
I love that we went to this town, the Logtown, afterwards. I love that we got to see the place where the last Pirate King had been executed. If they've been executed, I mean, who came up behind them in that cape, in that outfit? And why did they get such good luck there at the end? Who knows? But I love everything that happened. Weird. Pardon?
That sure was weird.
I loved everything that happened in this town. I love that person looks very much like, and probably is, his childhood friend who we thought died falling down some stairs.
Interesting. So now I need to tell you this. This isn't a spoiler because I'm telling you a thing that isn't.
Okay.
Nothing about who that woman is really confirmed. There are some people who are on board with it's Kuina.
Why are we talking about how when he sits there and he goes all like, she goes, thank you very much. And he goes all weird and walks away and he goes, she looks just like Kuina. And then I'm like, ugh. Okay. Yeah. So let's go into the moment that this picture is based around. I'm going to take a look at your picture again. Yeah. And then we'll go into the... Oh, that's good, dude.
You're a fan?
So awesome.
I love
with that. That's amazing.
I love Mihawk being annoyed by what a chipper guy Shanks is. It's my favorite part of that scene. And yeah, we could talk about that scene because... You said that you were debating either Usopp manning up or the moment I predicted it was going to be Luffy, help me. You said you were debating those for a while. Which of those you were going to pick as the scene you wanted me to draw until 100%. You saw your man Mihawk.
The minute that I saw Mihawk walk into the scene, and I loved how it first happens in the dark and Mihawk is walking on with his giant sword behind him. And you're like, oh my God, it's Mihawk. What's going on? And I'm getting all excited, and then it goes to this dark camp, and it's raining, and everybody's gurring, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, and it goes red-haired Shanks, pirate captain, and I was like, they know each other? I could not read fast enough. I just could not read fast enough so that I could get back to the part where the two of them came back together again.
Yeah, they know each other.
This was such an incredible moment. And now I wonder if Red Hair Shanks is one of the other 7 warlords.
Who's to say? I mean, I'm to say. Oda's to say. A lot of people could say, but we're not going to say.
Yeah. Well, we got to say things quicker. We've been 2 hours, and I don't want to take up everybody's day and night. So
fair enough. Let's try. So let's you had some cool thoughts about this. What were you about your happiness of Shanks seeing Luffy's wanted poster? It's one of the only things we talked about ahead of time.
Yeah, well, it just made me so happy because one of the things that you're always doing when you're reading a story and somebody is trying to get to a goal is that and they have somebody that means so much to them, and that person doesn't know how hard that this other person is trying to reach their goal and to get there and all the things they've done. And it feels like you're like, it's so upsetting because if something happened to Luffy, Red Hair Shanks doesn't know all the amazing things he's done and how hard he's tried. But the moment that Oda let us have this happen, where Mihawk brings him the wanted dead or alive poster with the $30 million or 30 million berry piece on it, now we know as an audience that Red Hair Shanks knows that Luffy is on his way to trying to become the king of the pirates. And it is such a bone to throw us that we get to feel the excitement of Red Hair Shanks seeing this poster, but we also get to know as an audience that no matter what else happens, that Red Hair Shanks knew what Luffy was up to. And so whether Luffy knows it or not, Red Hair Shanks is feeling this great piece of pride over what Luffy is doing. And it just made me feel so happy that while all of this is taking place, Red Hair Shanks knows to watch for Luffy now.
And don't you love how proud Shanks is? Kaido Luminous pointed out that he acts like a proud dad, but like that he's not just like, so the kid's coming for my title or I'll get that hat back. That he's just like goofy and giddy excited. Like he's like, boys, look, it's Luffy.
Yeah, 100%.
He's doing it.
He was giddy with excitement. And you're just sitting there being like, oh God, yes. And because it mattered to him. But not only that, when Red Hair Shanks says to Mihawk, I couldn't help but notice that this reminded me of a story you told about a young boy in a village. Then we know that as much as Red Hair Shanks had meaning for Luffy, that Luffy had that same meaning to Red Hair Shanks. And it was a reciprocal relationship, and Luffy was invested in something that the other person was also invested in. And it feels so good to know that Luffy wasn't on his own, thinking that the two of them had chemistry and that there was he was a sensei to him. That's how Red Hair Shanks felt as well.
Absolutely. It's so meaningful. It is a great scene. It's underrated. I wasn't expecting it. I should have expected it to be your pick because you love Mihawk so much. But it is also just very meaningful to the story to see that Luffy's important to Shanks and that he's so excited that he's following his dreams.
Yeah. And we get to see that. We don't have to wait all the way into the end where you suddenly wrap up all the pieces and Red Hair Shanks comes out and is like, you were doing this all along, which would be... Instead, we get to see that now Red Hair Shanks gets to be invested in the story as well, and he gets to be a part of the change that Luffy is going through, and he gets to look for it and look for more information and keep his ears to the ground. And how stoked he was. That's a really cool feeling to get to be an audience and get to feel the excitement at the same time that Red Hair Shanks did. Finding out about the sword, I know we're gonna... Sorry.
No, you go. The ranks of the swords and the cursed blade and all that.
Yeah, that was a cool thing that's obviously really going to come in the future, but I couldn't believe how many different types of special swords there were. My God, when she was going off about, oh, this type of sword and this type of sword, and I was like, oh my God.
I love that Tashigi's like, oh, look at all these types of swords that I know. And Zoro's like, lady, lady, stop. You look, I just want to buy a sword, okay? I'm just buying two swords. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Just let me do things.
Where was she going on about all the different type of swords here? I can't find it.
Oh, I can't.
In her great knowledge. But it was like when she started to list them and what the swords were known as and where they were last seen or what they could do and why they were so great, I was just like, holy crap. Also, swords are expensive.
Yep. I mean, so I think, oh God, there's a figure that someone uses to track how much berries are worth, which is a cabbage is like 300. So put that in perspective.
Okay.
So it's not like dollars. Yeah. Luffy's current bounty is like a few $100, I think. Or like a couple thousand. I gotta love
the way that Zoro shows them that he doesnes have to worry and he flips the sword in the air and then he just lets it go around him.
It's so fucking cool.
Why does everything Zoro does have to be so freaking epically cool, effortlessly cool? He stuck his arm out.
He's so confident about the cursed sword. He was so cool in that moment. The man's like, just have my most expensive sword. You earned this awesome sword that I own. That's the pride and joy of my collection by being so baller. You're so cool. I will fail as a business for you.
Yeah, exactly. So he sticks his hand out in Roguetown or Logtown, depending on how you see it, and he's going to buy this sword, and it just goes all the way around his arm and smashes into the ground. And in that moment, you go, Zoro, come on, man. Why are you so cool?
He's so fucking cool.
Why are you so cool? And then weirdly, when he leaves, he goes, having 3 swords makes me feel whole again. It's like, oh God, Zoro.
It's also nice for him to have 3 good swords instead of 2 just pieces of disposable junk now.
Yeah, exactly. I love Smoker. He's a great character. I hope he comes back some more. I love him.
I'm sorry, but it looks like my pants ate your ice cream cone.
Yeah, that was a great moment. I think that it was really nice to find out that Smoker wasn't just all evil, that he actually fought for something that he believed in and it meant something to him.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty amazing moment. And then where was I going to? Because I'm moving ahead in here.
The return?
Okay. Luffy, of course, the return of, what's her name again?
Alvida and Buggy are the 2 coming back.
Now, I knew Buggy was coming back, and I think he's coming back later, and I stand behind my
You stand by your prediction that he's going to come to the Grand Line.
Yeah, and I stand by my prediction that Buggy and him are going to have to work together at some point.
All right, I will let you stand by that prediction.
Wait. I think Morgan and Buggy are going to come together.
Here's what I'm saying. You can add that in. We are holding your predictions to hey, if anybody wants to know the origin of this, they can watch it's a pretty short video edited down of me making my diesel plunk drawing. My favorite art so far. Yeah, great. It has the origin of this. I say we stick to the channel policy. This pedal goes up. This pedal goes up is a nonsense saying that means when you make a statement, you stick to it. So you can't undo your predictions.
I'll stick to it, but I'm adding
a prediction that he'll work with Morgan. Okay.
Together.
Write that down, chat. Someone in the Discord, go to the Drock Show notes and start putting Mama Drock's newest predictions. We have Usopp the Alchemist and Buggy will work with Morgan.
Tinker Alchemist.
Tinker Alchemist.
And then we got Luffy standing on top of the platform. We have... I can't believe that Elvira is interested in Luffy.
Like, gave her a wallop
as a partner.
Yeah, so it's a sometimes trope in anime and manga for a real tough lady to be like, oh, someone was actually able to beat me. They're so hot.
Okay. Has she met Zoro?
Who do you think is stronger between Luffy and Zoro? Because we've had Zoro handicapped every time, but Luffy is the one beating the big bads. Who do you think is stronger?
I mean,
this is a debate that comes up in the fan base sometimes, and I think people's answers tends to change throughout the series, which makes sense because the characters grow and develop and change.
Yeah, I just don't think that we haven't seen his capability since after his fight yet with Hawkeye. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know. That's a hard call because we wait for Luffy to come. Like when Luffy comes, he's the one that takes on. But on the other hand, like you were saying, Zoro has been handicapped by injury.
Yeah, who knows? We really haven't seen him at his fullest.
I know that she shouldn't be sneezing at Zoro.
All right, but she never fought Zoro, so she doesn't know.
Love the idea of a slip fruit, and I cannot wait to see what else that means she can do. Like I think that's a great fruit.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, so, but then when Buggy comes back in his full glory, he's back to his first archetype. He's dangerous and scary as hell. Ready to rock and roll and take over.
And he knows he can't fight Luffy now, and he traps him and ambushes him.
Exactly. And I really loved, and then we have Smoker coming in over here. I really loved these whole panels with the idea that we were going to get to see that character thing of Luffy again. He's about to be killed, and he's just chill. He's like, yeah, I'm Luffy. I'm about to be killed. And I'm just going to chill, sit here, and maybe get killed. But there is this moment right here where Luffy is about to be murdered. The storm is happening. You've got the big bad. I'm just looking at here, everyone fighting. You've got the big bad pirates in town. Everybody is staring at him. He's about to be executed by Buggy the Clown. And then he goes, I've never seen an execution before. Buggy goes, you're the one being executed. Stop joking around. And he acts like, oh, what a neat new thing to do. Oh, somebody has a thing on the back of their shirt that says Bell 106. Well, look at that, friend. I really loved this moment where all of his crazy people come back. I think the fighting was fantastic. But really, for me, the whole thing that was the most amazing was that dude with the cape is standing behind him.
Yep.
They're running off towards the boat. He gets to escape because of it. Because I accidentally read to chapter 103.
You read a little bit further.
So I was supposed to read to 100, but I'm sorry. How was I supposed to keep to that? Like, you had me stopping at a point where I wasn't going to see the ending.
That's fair. That's fair. I thought it only went to 100 for some reason. I think 103 was fair here.
Yeah, I was going to die. So I didn't even read all of 103, but I had to see how this ended. Okay, yeah, I like how they put in there accidentally. And so, like, fine, accidentally on purpose. I mean, have it any way you want. It had to finish. Freaking everyone is running out to the boat, and here I am sitting there going, no, what the hell's happening? I was freaking out, and then I was like, I'm just gonna have to fess up. There's no way in hell for me. Okay, we see this dude walk in with his cape on in chapter 100, and it says the legend begins, chapter 100, and I was like, oh, what now? And he comes walking out with this tribal looking tattoo on his face. As long as people are hungry for freedom, these things will exist. Gold Roger, king of the pirates. A pirate, eh? Not a bad idea. And then we head off to everybody is chasing him down for the no good rubber boy. They're trying to get away. I had a wonder, and I know that the pedal is always up because
this pedal goes up
because you're a mean. But I've decided to put in there as one of my predictions. Is there a possibility that Luffy is either the son? Like, what is the timeline if Luffy could be the son or a reincarnation of the Gold River King pirate?
The gold? You mean Gold Roger?
Gold Roger.
Yeah. At with the amount of information you have, you don't know that because they haven't talked much about years yet.
Okay, so I have no idea what the years are. So if the years don't allow it, and that's fine. This is going to be one of those this pedal is up moment. If the years don't allow it, I'm wondering if Luffy could be a reincarnation.
Interesting. A reincarnation of Gold Roger.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any thoughts about Shadow Man in the cloak?
Okay. Besides the fact that he's literally the coolest thing since sliced bread.
Is he cooler than Mihawk? Who's cooler? The Shadow Man.
Don't be ridiculous.
Chat has confirmed. Chat has confirmed that his name has been said. It's Dragon. So Mihawk's cooler than Dragon.
For me, Mihawk is still cooler than Dragon, only because of what we've seen Mihawk is capable of, right? Like, we've actually seen Mihawk in battle. We've had those epic moments. We've had him sail away and say, strive to reach me at the top. I mean, come on.
So, what was it that saved Luffy's life again?
It was the Shadow Man.
But something happened before the Shadow Man showed up.
Okay, I got it.
When Luffy was about to die, that you should go take a look at. And this is something that's not a spoiler because it's not confirmed. This is a theory that existed at the point you're at that I'm trying to discuss because this is. I feel like that's fair, right, chat, to talk about theories that existed in the community when this was the most recent chapter. Because this was my reading of the situation watching the anime as a teen. I'm not bringing any future info into this.
It's fair. You can even just openly talk to me about it, because I'm just
I
trying
want to avoid spoilers entirely, but this was my read of it when I was a teen. It's not confirmed at all, but what saved Luffy's life was a lightning bolt hitting Buggy right as Buggy was about to swing down the blade.
Oh yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And then a wind came through and pushed the Mary out to sea faster.
Those
My
are
theory.
the reasons. It's because of all those reasons that I said I wondered if he was either a reincarnation or the son of this person, because I was like, why is he getting this almost godlike help?
My reading of it, and my theory when I was a teen first watching this, is that Dragon, the dude who showed up, can control the weather.
That you thought he was a weather controller.
Because he shows up with this rolling thunder and wind that exactly helps the person that he's come to save.
I like your theory. Let me just get to the part where he's being rescued, because I'm just trying to get back there. That's why my response is slower. But you can edit that out later.
Yeah, I'll say the anime hints at this a lot more than the manga does, but we don't know if that's because Oda instructed or if that was just their reading of it, so they leaned in.
Yeah. I like that theory, because the reason that I started to think about anything like the idea of reincarnation, which in Japan is an idea that plays, right? Like it's something that could work.
Yep, it could.
Or any of those pieces, was because when he lifted it, so you've come, Zoro, but you're a second too late. And I also like that Luffy cried out for help, because I don't like a main character who can't admit when they're over their head. And when he calls Sanji, Zoro, help. I really liked that moment, because it showed vulnerability in our main character, and I love that. But when we see the dude come out there and then Buggy lifts his sword and it gets hit by the lightning, that was one of the reasons that I was like, oh, is he having like godlike interference in his death? And then the storm pushed them back out to sea, and the rain made it so the person couldn't set fire to their boat. And it was just one thing after another that felt like divine interference. So I like your idea that the dude inside of the cloak, and then it ends up burning down the scaffolding that he's on. I love, and then Luffy, in like the normal way that he does things, his hat falls to the ground after he falls. He picks it up, puts it on his head, and goes, "Oh, I'm alive. Lucky me."
Love that. I love that he's just like, "Oh, cool, I didn't die. Sweet." But I also love Smoker being like, I've never seen someone smile before they got killed since Gold Roger.
I love that moment too. And that was why I asked whether or not it was possible that Luffy could have been like either a reincarnation or a child of, because I thought that's a really interesting piece of foreshadowing then. Also, the reason that I said godlike is because Sanji says, do you believe in a higher power? And then Zoro says, don't talk nonsense. Let's get out of here. We're not in the clear yet. Yeah. So in that panel, I was like, is it possible that there's a divine interference that we're not aware of? Or is it possible that there's interference from beyond the grave because Luffy is the son of, and this person is dead, or something like that? But I do like your idea of it being weather powers from this dragon character.
From what I understand, the anime made it really look like that compared to the manga, and I first watched this instead of read it, and people don't really know if, like, that was kind of Oda being like, hey, by the way, I wasn't clear about this, it's supposed to be that way, or if that was how the anime staff just interpreted it and leaned into it, because there have been moments that they've leaned into what they thought was obvious and then been wrong. So it's hard to say what's up.
I like people being wrong. I like being wrong. I think it's great.
People are pointing out that I should show you the anime clip at some point. So yeah, we should watch that at
You can
some
send
point.
the anime clip. I'm trying to be careful not to watch any of the things you send me on my own device. I borrow a device because I don't want the...
You don't want the algorithm to feed you One Piece. That's a very good idea.
Because right now I'm looking up too many things about symbolism and other pieces, and I don't want it to connect it to One Piece.
No, I think that's a very smart idea. I think let's close out with we got our 3 segments we're gonna do, right?
Yeah.
We got our popularity poll, predictions, and favorite devil fruit so far. Let's start with devil fruits because it's easy. We got 4 instead of 2 now. So we got the gum fruit, the slip fruit, I think is English, the chop fruit, and the smoke fruit. Or plume. I don't remember what it is. But we have turn
What
into,
does-
create, control,
What
smoke.
does the plume plume fruit do?
You can
I was
turn into,
unclear.
create, and control smoke.
Okay, that's what I thought. That one's not my favorite.
Okay.
And that's fourth.
That's fourth.
third
That's
or
the fourth. That's the fourth favorite.
Yeah. Then I think it's Chop Chop, because I've told you before, kind of grosses me out.
I think the Chop Chop's great still. I think you are underrating how cool it would be to fly around on your little hover body.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. That's all great. Gross. I don't like the idea of a torso flying around with its meat section in the middle. It just barfs me. I think Slip Slip is second, and Gum Gum for me is still first.
You still would rather be rubber than extra slidey, turn into smoke, or Chop Chop.
Yeah, I think the Rubberman is great. I think it's a phenomenal. And he made his fingers weird and long and did that strange finger thing this time. And I was like,
net,
oh, that's new.
The
Loving
Gum Gum
that.
net.
Gum Gum Net was fantastic.
All right, so now we're going to do the top 5 popularity poll and see how it shifted. I believe last time it was Mihawk, then Zoro, then Luffy, Sanji, and Shanks. I think that was your previous top 5.
Luz Cole said he is Smoke. Yeah, you're right. That is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to think about that later.
Oh my god, if you were made of rubber, your daughter would be allergic to you, as he's pointing out.
I'm not going to think about that.
She'd be allergic to your presence.
Couldn't have a single hug.
Never hug your daughter again or kill her, because you're made of rubber now.
In the world that I think it's the best double fruit to eat, that's not the case.
You have to have a daughter without a latex allergy in that world.
It's the same daughter. Her latex and rubber allergy is gone.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna say, am I doing popularity of characters?
Yeah, this is your popularity poll. The previous one, like I said, was Mihawk, Zoro, Luffy, Sanji, Shanks was your top 5.
Overall, or just in this section? I'm gonna do just in this section.
I think we do overall. I think we see how things shift over time.
You're cheeky. Fine. Number 5.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm gonna start with number 1.
Gonna start with number 1? Okay.
Number 1. Luffy.
Yes. This brings me to something I forgot that I wanted to say that I'll ask you after the popularity poll. Luffy's always at the top for me. Ever since this section's where he went to the top.
First, but now I think that he's just wiggled his way into my heart to number 1.
He's so good.
I'm putting number 2 at Hawkeye.
Fair enough. Still cool as hell.
Just love that dude. I'm putting number 3. Can't believe I'm going to say this. Nami.
Fair. Honestly, at this point of the story, Nami's really compelling. I fully understand that.
I'm putting number 4. Zoro.
All right. He's still so goddamn cool.
Number 5. Usopp.
Usopp above Sanji now. Interesting.
I did not want to pick Usopp. I did not. But that change of character.
Yep, it's great.
I don't know what to say. Like,
yep.
Just watching how he grew and knowing I can see where he's going. And dang it, I really like him now.
He's a very fun, compelling character. I like that he still has his faults, but he showed that he's able to, when it means something, to fight through his fear and accomplish something great. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I like that Udo says to himself, Oda, I did that the other day too, says to himself, I want this character to maintain who they are, but at the same time, I want them to get to reinvent themselves. And then when they're reinventing themselves, he lets them maintain their essential being. And I think that's pretty cool. And then he makes it a strength. Instead of just saying, these are weaknesses, he says these things that other people perceive as weaknesses can also be strengths. It's kind of the way that people felt about reading Riordan's Percy Jackson series. In that he had ADHD and it was seen as a weakness, but it turned out that what it was is able to do things like hyperfocus and notice details. And so things that other people see as a weakness are actually, you can use them in your own way as a strength. And I think that's what made me look at Usopp in a different way.
Now there's two questions I wanted to ask you before we do the predictions. The first question was, I wanted to ask earlier, right? Henchmen. What are who's your favorite henchman so far at this point of the story? We got Buggy's crew with Unicycle Kumadori Man.
I like that. What's the name of the lion tamer?
Kabaji, I believe. Or is that the Unicycle Man? Moji. Moji's the lion tamer. Kabaji's the
Moji is the lion tamer. Moji. And I love Moji. I think he's a great character.
Is that your current number one henchman?
No.
I think mine is Hachi at this point of the story.
You think Hachi is your number one henchman?
He's just a funny little dumbass.
Is it his comedic relief?
Yeah, it's that he's funny. He's a funny little dumbass. I love him.
I would put Hachi in number 2. I would put the lion tamer at number 3.
Just so people have a sense for how I rank henchmen, because this isn't a spoiler because it'll mean nothing. My favorite henchman is Queen, for anyone who's further ahead and wants to know what I rank highly. So at this point in the story, Hachi. I love him.
Hachi is awesome. He's my 2. Then Mo is number 3, the lion tamer. The kissy fish right now is my number 1.
I get that. I like his like kind of pompous personality. I like that he has his special ability with blasting water. I think he's a fun guy. I also just love him getting fucking irritated having to chase Usopp.
Yeah, I absolutely adored. I like the line. I think I appreciated that he was the one that was there when I got to see Usopp in a different way. And I think that gave him some street cred for me to enjoy him.
Fair. So the last question I had for you before we go into predictions. I think this is a special, weird distinction to make. But I don't mean this in the way of, do you believe the story will make this happen? At this point of the story, when Luffy says, I'm the man who's going to be king of the pirates, don't you feel like you believe him?
Oh, I 100% Luffy is going to be king of the pirates.
And it doesn't just feel like a contrivance of the story. It feels like he kind of inspires you to believe him, which I feel like is so hard to do in fiction, to make the story go away and just make you feel like you truly believe what a character is telling you that they'll accomplish.
I also think it's important to make the distinction that his believing in himself is part of what makes me believe in him. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that if anybody is willing to put that much stock in their own worth, that I'm like, you know what? I believe it. And then he backs it up by continuing to train and continuing to learn and becoming more than he was, and seeing that he still has room for growth, and not having hubris. Like he says, Sanji, Zoro, help. So there's no hubris. He knows when he's over his head. And I think, yeah.
I just think that's something so special that, like, there's a lot of stories where a character talks about what they'll accomplish, where, like, I believe that the story will make this happen. But with Luffy, I feel like I believe he'll make it happen.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And that's a really neat distinction to make. It's not just going to happen. But that falls in line, too, with Udo's feelings of Oda. You have to... Or sorry, see, I have to stop doing it. There's a restaurant that was called Udo. And now I'm doing it. Oda's feelings of saying, you have to choose to be great. And you have to work for it. It's not just going to happen. And so because everything that Luffy does is that choice. So yeah, right. I believe it.
So to wrap it up, let's get your predictions for the future going. And we have 2 of them already. And someone wanted to hear your predictions for what the other warlords will be like. What kind of characters you think would be included? And if there's any existing characters you think would be included, which it sounds like there is. And if anyone's in the Discord, put these in the notes as we add them.
Okay, so yeah, so the one is, I think that Luffy might be either the son of or a reincarnation of the Gold King.
Gold Roger.
Yeah, Gold Roger.
Yeah. All right.
And then I already said Usopp is going to become like a serious tinker alchemist.
Yep.
Where was I looking? I think that it's possible that Red Shank is going to be one of the 7 warlords. I'm going to put that in.
All right. Shanks is a warlord. We have that on the predictions.
Okay. Also on the predictions, I don't know why I see this, and this is for so long off in the future, and it was when I saw that scene where they were all lined up that I thought, you know what? I have this scene in my head where all 7 of the pirate warlords are lined up in a room and they decide to make Luffy captain of the pirates.
You king of the pirates? You think? Okay. That's a really big one where you think the warlords are going to do that. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think it's just going to happen. I think the warlords are going to make it happen.
Interesting. I can't say anything.
I know. I think there's going to be a declaration. I think it's going to start with fighting and people being like, you upstart little jerk and that kind of stuff. But I think that eventually.
All right.
And then I want to make a prediction that Luffy is going to run into Red Hair Shanks sooner than he was ready to. Somewhere around chapter 300. That it feels to me like, or even sooner, that he's going to run into Red Hair Shanks, that Red Hair Shanks is going to put him in his path again.
All right. We have those predictions. And the last thing is someone had a question about what kind of characters you think would be part of the warlords other than the fishman Jimbei that we've been hinted at. And you believe Shanks will be one. If we have to fill out 4 more slots, what kind of characters would you like to see? What kind of characters do you think they'll include?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to go off on this.
Yeah, just a reminder, warlords are big name pirates who have basically been offered protection from the government if they only fuck up pirates instead of the Navy.
God, I don't know if I'm ready to make this prediction.
You don't think so?
I feel unequipped.
How about let's predict 1 or 2. Let's add a couple types of characters instead of like trying to predict a whole lot of them.
It's hard because when I would never have predicted a fishman.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the captain there, so there's gonna have to be somebody who is like an incredible martial artist. But for weirdness sake, right? Oh, I hope there's one that can fly.
Interesting. One that can fly.
I would love if there was one that could fly. And then we've got swimming already and flight. And if I was doing it by the elements, and we already had that combusting stupid pearl. But if I was doing it by the elements, I would want to make sure that there was one that could control wind, because that would be elementally intelligent to have air. And I would do a combusting one. So I'm going to have a fire warlord. I'm going to be a little bit
we can be
lame.
vague. We can be vague.
I'm going to be lame. I'm going to put a fire warlord in there, and I'm going to put somebody who can move earth.
Someone who can move earth. Interesting.
Like make a mountain and block your way and put things in the way of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I'm going to put somebody who can control the weather so that they can screw up any of your plans.
Okay.
And I think and they can make it like snowy or terrible. I think it's where I'm going to stop for now on that one.
That's where we're going to stop? All right. Yeah. I think I've just been doing fine details on this for so long because I finished a while ago, but I really was having fun with the conversation. Thank you again for doing this, and thanks everyone for being here. This has been so much fun. I have terrible news for you. The next section's very short. It only goes up to 114.
Oh, you want me to read to 114? Did you check ahead?
Yeah, I've checked when the next area stops.
Okay, and I've already read to 103 like a rotten kid who couldn't stop.
So it's only 9 more chapters, unfortunately.
I gotta tell you, that's way better. I think that I could do so much better of a job.
I think sometimes we're going to have to take longer in between when we're going to be doing a section that's going to be a bunch of chapters. But yeah, as soon as you're ready for 9 more. Guys, if we don't just do the next small section, we're not going to talk about the next small section. We can't. If we go beyond that, you know that it'll just get glossed over, and that can't happen.
So what I think we should do is we should do it sooner.
I think that's fair. I think instead of taking multiple weeks off, honestly, I'd be down to do this again next week because it's a shorter section. I think you can get through it pretty quick.
I would agree. I'm already mostly through it. And I already know Laboon!
You do know about Laboon. Don't worry, guys.
And somebody put it in the thing last time. I screamed out, Laboon!
Don't worry, guys. Sometimes there'll be shorter ones. Sometimes there'll be longer ones. It's just going to depend on, like, the way I'm chopping this is sometimes there'll be short sections if I basically feel like we won't end up talking about a section of story if another story afterwards is also talked about. Because I think everything needs to be given its time. And, taking a leisurely pace through the story where we chop it up into digestible sections isn't the worst thing. That being said, I'm pretty sure there's like a 50 chapter arc coming up that we can't chop up.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. I'll read faster. You and I can talk and you can put in notes when we'll do it again. I could do it quicker if we're doing a short section. I've almost read in that area already. I wanted to apologize to people, but I couldn't help it. The story dragged me forward. If I didn't read more, I would have gone crazy.
They're not upset with you right now for reading more. They're upset with me for making you read less.
It's
I'm the bad
hard.
guy.
Because you know what I get like when I get into a book. So in the beginning, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That's a lot. And now I'm like, damn it. I need to move forward.
For the time being, that's going to do it for One Piece. If anyone wants to stick around, please do. I'd love to have you. I understand if that's all you're here for, but I'm going to be starting my next long-term project. I love long-term projects on this stream. I dip into them over time, just when I don't have a particular thing planned and I just want to have fun and hang out with chat and whoever wants to come in. The next long-term project is going to be a suggestion from a friend, a Renaissance-style portrait of an e-girl. And I have so many fun things for it. I'm very, very excited to work on this. It's just going to be another hour or so. And Mama Drock, thank you so much for being on. I am loving doing this series with you. Your insights are astounding. I've never thought about the importance of timing and waiting in One Piece before, and it feels like you've found a secret that I've been missing the entire time in a story that I thought I kind of knew the corners of.
That's really sweet to say. I sometimes feel like when people are like, oh, those are great insights, I'm like, you can't insight forever. So what a kind thing to say. I'm really, really enjoying it. And I've gotten to this point now where it pisses me off when I have to stop reading.
That's fair.
I gotta tell you, this picture here is sweet. Are you going to be doing a caption on this one, or are you using the dead
this
or alive?
One's good. The caption was just kind of necessary for the vibe of the other one. This one just is what it is.
This was a really special moment for me. And I mean, you knew it was going to be when you remembered that it existed in this section. And when I got to this moment, I think this was the moment that I became a One Piece fan. For real.
Really?
It was the moment when they saw each other and started having a conversation that I was like, I see you, my friend, and I'm a fan for life.
I think that makes sense because it's a moment that gets you to think about the size of the world instead of just the story that you're currently occupying.
Exactly. He let us glimpse into the fact that they were connected, which showed me what a great big world it is. And getting to see how important Luffy was to red-haired Shanks as well. Now I could fully buy in, and I was like, okay, I'm here.
That's really awesome to hear. I think for me that moment was also in this section, but when I first watched, but it was the Luffy help. That was the moment where I was like, I'm on board for life. This is a perfect story.
Yeah, so we are within a couple of chapters of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Well, take care of everyone. I have had such a great time. Thank you for letting me be a part of this world.
And yeah, thanks, chat, for being so nice and welcoming to my mom. This has been so much fun. Thank you again for being on, and everybody, it's been lovely talking to you. Which is what that'll be the end on the YouTube video, but I'm gonna keep going. Thanks for being here, Madre, and you can hop out and do whatever. I'm gonna hop into Hangout chat. If anyone wants to hop in, they can. And other than that, I'm going to start working on my long-term project. I hope some people will stick around because these are a lot of fun, and I love to get input from chat on what should be included. And there's going to be a lot of like meticulous planning in this one. Thanks again.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Bye. Now, time for the bad part of this. We have to get Craigbot again because Craigbot is needed for audio to sound good.